you want. The sooner you order, the sooner you can experience the true remedy for your pain, stiffness, and stress. Call now.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-823-4108 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-823-4108. 1-800-823-4108. Call now.
Today, the 21st anniversary of President Reagan's death, reminds me of my father, what he used to say during the Reagan years, touting lower interest rates that actually helped him refinance the mortgage.
Right.
Also, the other benefits, you know, he was born in 1925. He remembers the Great Depression. He remembers the Cold War. And he actually understood exactly what Reagan was able to do. So, and I also remember in the late 1970s, being on those long gas lines, sitting in the back of the car as a little child.
Yeah.
So hearing the stories from my father really gave me a deeper understanding of Reaganomics.
Oh, yes, most definitely. And also peace through strength, something that, to your point, John, earlier, Donald Trump has taken to heart and is also exemplifying that message.
Absolutely. And I think when you look at a lot of Trump's policies, it mirrors Reagan.
It does.
With a Trump twist to it, just to make sure that he's covering everything in the modern time.
You're watching theDove TV, encouraging and informative for Bend and Central Oregon. Seen on KBND 14 and these Dove TV affiliates.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Mornings on the Dove, where it happens.
Yes, every day.
This is where it happens because Jerry Bilden, is here.
Well, that's debatable why, but good morning. Thank you.
Good morning. Happy Thursday to you. Welcome to Mornings on the Dove. A lot going on in the news. There always is. The weather is beautiful. And guess what?
What?
Moving down Hot Avenue towards the weekend.
Yes, indeed.
So we'll talk about that coming up a little bit later on. Interesting things in the news. And was the Ukrainian attack on Russia taking out all the airplanes on 5 bases?
Right.
It's now being said that that's Russia's Pearl Harbor.
Oh, no kidding.
That's how bad it was.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I have some questions now.
Very serious.
It sounds
So
like
we'll get into it.
Okay.
But
yes.
Anyway, happy, what is today? Thursday.
It's Friday Eve.
Oh, yeah.
How about that? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, good morning to you. A lot going on. What do we got here?
Well, if at first you don't succeed,
try.
Try again. It is National Start Over Day.
Oh, well, there you go.
We've all heard that phrase, and, I think we've all come upon it where we failed at something. You try, and how many times do you try?
Well, remember the scripture says that his mercies are new every morning. Mm-hmm. It didn't say once a week or a quarter.
Yeah.
The mercies, so you get a fresh batch when you wake up.
Yeah.
Okay, operate in that today.
That's the word. Yeah, I like it. All right. And then have a piece of gingerbread because it's National Gingerbread Day. Now, gingerbread is a sweet food that's typically uses honey or molasses rather than just sugar and is flavored with ginger, obviously. Mm-hmm. Gingerbread foods, though, range from a soft, moist loaf cake or even soft, chewy cookies to something closer to a ginger biscuit. What do you prefer?
Well, I can't say that I've had a ginger biscuit. Maybe I have, and I just didn't know it.
You know, I think it's the old texture thing between crunchy cookies and soft cookies almost.
But isn't ginger kind of associated with the holidays?
And that's why it's weird that this is today. Yeah, this is a holiday food. What are we doing celebrating it in June?
Well, it's because somebody needed to boost their sales.
You know, I think a few of these things boil down to it. And if you want, put some ketchup on it. It is National Ketchup Day. Now, this is weird. Did you know ketchup comes from China? The Chinese word ketchup, which is, you know, we have a couple pronunciations of ketchup, and then catsup. Catsup, and there are some regions in the country that they kind of go towards catsup. But the original ketchup from China was a sauce made with fermented fish. Doesn't that sound lovely? Consisting of anchovies or oysters, mushrooms, and walnuts. The sauce became really popular with the British during the 17th century. They hauled it home and they started putting it on everything. And but in 1812, American scientist James Meese documented the first tomato-based ketchup recipe. That was 1812. But contemporary ketchup became widely popular in 1876. Now, keep in mind, that's the year of Custer's The Last Stand. That was way back there. When H.J. Heinz introduced his version of ketchup with a thick consistency and sweet flavor, Heinz spent many hours experimenting with the perfect ketchup recipe. Eventually, he found a way to produce ketchup using quality ingredients like sugar, vinegar, and that helped the shelf life. The vinegar was put in for shelf life.
Wow. So it came from China.
Yeah.
It's a mixture of
Went
fish.
through Britain.
Okay, went to Britain.
Then came to America.
So when it left Britain, it came to America, it turned into what we know as like tomato ketchup.
Yeah.
When it left Britain,
Right.
it turned into, what do they call it? Vegemite.
That brings up another topic. Do you like Vegemite? Yeah, me too. I'm with you.
I don't know. I mean, you have to be a Brit to like it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's one of those things you have to be brought up. There's a Norwegian food that we eat. It's called lutefisk. It's a lye prepared fish. And it is very pungent. It's very bold. And it wiggles. Okay. It's also National Veggie Burger Day.
Veggie burgers.
Packed with flavor, protein, and nutrients, veggie burgers show up at backyard barbecues, tailgate parties, and on the menus of high-class restaurants. And whether you grill them, fry them, or bake them, these burgers are worth taking a bite of. Just like a standard beef burger, you can layer all your favorite toppings, onions, tomatoes, lettuce,
You ever
cheese.
had one?
I have, yes.
They're not bad.
I guarantee you they're not bad. I'll have that.
Well, you know, enough salt fixes anything.
You know, salts and spices and
No,
stuff.
you keep salting it until it tastes good.
Yeah. And you know, everywhere in this article, it told me all about veggie burgers except what's really in them. But you know what? There's a lot of beans in veggie burgers.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, a lot of beans and assorted other vegetables and seasonings and stuff. So, but all in all, pretty good. Yeah.
Alice, would you have a veggie burger? Huh? Yeah, she goes, yeah, okay.
Absolutely. I'll take it. Sign me up. All right. And then one bit of factual information here. You know, what do you think Costco's #1 selling item is?
Well, it's either got to be the hot dog or the rotisserie chicken. Okay, neither one?
No.
Okay, hold on. Is it the pizza?
No. And you know this is true. When I say it, you're going to say, oh, yeah.
Bing.
Toilet paper. Toilet paper. Costco sells enough toilet paper every year to wrap around the earth 1,200 times. In fact,
Did we ever discover that we needed that much toilet paper until Costco came along?
Isn't that the truth? Well, they sell over 1 billion rolls of Kirkland toilet paper every year, accounting for 15% of toilet paper sales in the United States. The average Costco member purchases 78 rolls of Kirkland toilet paper annually, spending around $54. Toilet paper is the best-selling Costco product, generating over $400 million in sales annually.
Just for TP.
Just for toilet paper. It's their #1 item. And you know what? I got to tell you the truth. it makes sense, because what happens when a pandemic hits? What's the first thing that disappears?
Well, look how it happened last time.
It's crazy.
They actually rationed it for a while.
I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
We were up skiing. We were on top of the mountain the week that the world closed.
Mm-hmm.
We were cloistered on the top of a mountain. We didn't know really what was going on. And on the way home, Jenna told Pam, she goes, "You guys better stop at Costco on the way home and get some stuff, because there's nothing here in our Costco." We're like, "What? Wow. Costco?" And she said, "Yeah." So we roll into the Costco in Carson City.
Oh.
And I'm telling you, people are coming out. It looks like the apocalypse.
Yeah, I know.
And there's people stacked with shopping carts with nothing but toilet paper in it. And I'm looking, I thought, what is going on? We went in there. There wasn't one roll in there that you could get. Not one.
Well, it's an amazing thing. And you know what the other thing about Costco is? The products are high quality.
It's true, yes.
And I think the other thing that Costco has adapted that really has made them very successful is their return policy.
Absolutely, yes.
They don't balk.
They don't balk, yes.
You just go in there, sorry, don't like it, didn't work, or whatever. Okay, blah, 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 blah.
And the ease of the return is something special. You put the item down there, that you give them your card number, and they say, and they put it right back on your account because it went right on that card. It's flawless.
No, it's great customers.
But you know what nobody ever brought back to Costco? Toilet paper.
Now, why would they? And how could you prove there was something wrong?
Something's wrong with this toilet paper. It's too thick and plush and soft.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. All right, here's a guy that comes in rolls of dozens, and he does the weather.
With high pressure parked over the Pacific Northwest, warm, dry weather will continue through early next week. So today in northern Oregon and southern Washington, gradually becoming sunny with highs in the low to mid 80s for Vancouver, Portland, Wilsonville, and McMinnville. Moving down the Willamette Valley, partly sunny, then gradually becoming sunny with highs in the low 80s for Salem, Albany, Corvallis, and Eugene, with a north wind 5 to 9 miles per hour this morning. In central Oregon, sunny skies with daytime high temperatures in the low 80s in Prineville and mid to upper 70s for Bend and Sun River. Over in Boise, Idaho, sunny with highs in the mid 80s and a low tonight in the mid 50s. Along the Oregon coast, becoming sunny and breezy with a high near 67 in Coos Bay. Sunny and breezy with highs in the low to mid 60s for Port Orford, Brookings, and Crescent City, California, with gusts up to 33 miles per hour. In southern Oregon, sunshine in the Rogue Valley with daytime high temperatures in the low to mid 80s for Grants Pass, Medford, and Ashland. In the Klamath Basin, sunny with highs near 83 and lows in the mid 50s. Into northern California, sunny with a high in the mid-80s for Wairika. Sunny in Redding and Chico with high temperatures in the mid-90s, but not quite as warm in Sacramento with daytime highs in the upper 80s. In the Bay Area, patchy fog, then gradually becoming sunny with highs near 77 in Santa Rosa and Napa. Sunny and breezy in San Francisco with a high in the upper 60s and winds gusting up to 28 miles per hour. And today in San Jose, sunny and mid-80s. It's a look at your Thursday weather on the Dove.
Okay, good morning to you. And there's a look of southern Oregon this morning. Gorgeous day in the making, and a little bit of the east side mountain shadow over the valley a little bit. That'll clear up as the sun comes up more. So nice day in the making.
Time for some encouragement, and a perfect time of the day for this as Pastor Jack Hibbs explores what the apostle meant when he said it's high time that we awake out of our sleep.
For the last 2,000 years, the apostle announced, it's high time. You said, well, Jack, you just contradicted yourself. If he said it 2,000 years ago that now's the time and it's high time that we wake out of sleep, then how does that apply now? You remember, in eternity, there is no time. In this world, there is time. Conclusion, if he said it back then 2,000 years ago, how much closer are we to it now? We are more responsible now than those then, than what they were living. And you and I live much further down the timeline in chronology, and yet you and I are living in light of eternity. And it's a beautiful thing if you think about that. But I do believe that we as believers know what time it is. We know that the time is spiritually valued, and so when we look at the news, for example, we know what time it is. I believe the Bible-believing Christian who's looking at the world through the lens of the Bible They see, they understand, they look at things, and number one thing is this: don't you and I want as many men and women and boys and girls to join us in heaven forever as possible? It's always that way, no matter what it is. Listen, this church holds elected officials accountable for their authority, for their position. That doesn't mean we want to establish a kingdom on earth. That ain't going to happen. We want, as much as they want us out of here, we want out of here more. But in the meantime, in earth time, we are going to do the right thing. We're going to stand for what's right, and we are going to be salt and light, because this is what Christ has called us to do, with all the while looking up.
Well, there's the proper perspective. Yeah. Good stuff all the way around. I like Jack Hibbs.
I do too.
He's quite the communicator. He's becoming. It's interesting how God brings on new generations of communicators. And I think Jack Hibbs is one of these guys. Of course, you got Franklin Graham, and you got Anthony George. This new wave that's coming through seems to be theologically solid.
Absolutely.
They're not off on tangents about what one portion of Scripture really means.
Right.
They're taking the whole thing and looking at it.
Yes, and not omitting sections.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's not cafeteria theology, you know.
Right. I'll take a little of that. Give me a little of that. Yeah.
All right, good stuff all the way around. Good morning to you. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. Elon's still a little upset, and he is actually posting on X for people to call their representatives to vote against the big, beautiful bill. All right, so let's look into this. Why? Well, here it is. It terminates multiple tax credits that Tesla buyers get. One of the largest electrical car manufacturing companies in America currently qualifies for a $7,500 federal tax credit on new EVs, $4,000 credit for used EVs, and $1,000 credit for what they call level 2 charger installations. So all of that's cut out. Now, Elon has really turned here. And the question is it because of his company? Could be. Is this the battle of the billionaires' understanding of things?
I wonder. Yeah.
Or is it because he took a hit with his company by being the head of Doge? As you know, a lot of people went after his company. In the meantime, he's got a new series of cars coming out, but now guess what? You're going to have to do what all the other people, pay full price and not get any credit for it.
Well, that might hurt sales, huh?
It could bring the, you know, I want to encourage you to do something. Got to be careful. Okay. Have you shopped for a car lately? Or do you look at them?
You know what? I do. Yes. Yep.
So you go on and you look at the various cars, all right?
Yep.
All right. So when you're looking at a dealership website and you're looking at cars, go to the used car selection.
Okay.
And you know what the number one used car on most of the lots is?
No.
Electric.
Is it really?
Yes. And you got to ask yourself
why?
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Because they're not selling?
I want to be fair here because I think there's a place for EVs. Don't get me wrong. I think there's a place for EVs. Okay. But why is and this may not be the case completely, but the ones that I have been on, most of the most recent models that are turned back in for resale are EVs.
That is really interesting. Now, I think
what it is, you don't have 20 minutes to wait to get charged.
True.
And we live in such a fast-paced world. Do you really have wait? You got to go somewhere and wait for 30 minutes?
No. And like I said, my sister, you know, she's a classic example. She's got a really nice Tesla. She lives in Southern California. My mom's in Central California. She won't drive it up to visit her because it adds an extra 45 minutes to an hour to her trip because she has to stop halfway and plug in somewhere.
So is that the issue?
That is her issue on that. But no. I think I think that's one of the issues. But I think you have a couple other issues. I think you have basic price tag sticker shock because it's much more, and then you have this thing with the batteries.
Yeah.
And the batteries, first of all, we don't know about the recycling and how, what's the environmental effects of these batteries, and B, what's it going to cost us to replace them after they go out, because they're going to go out, right?
Yeah, you're hitting on all the cylinders there.
All right. Okay. That's right. You can tell I'm internal combustion still, huh?
Well, look, I just want to be careful here. I think there's a place for him. Don't get me wrong, but I think what Elon's upset with, he's the #1 EV manufacturer in the world. He's coming out with some new models, and the great incentive to buy a Tesla is tax credit, and that's been taken away.
Right.
That's going to hit sales significantly.
Yep. Yep.
So anyway, he's upset with the bill.
Yeah.
All right. President Trump and Putin. President Putin had. Where am I here? Oh, had a long conversation yesterday, an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh.
You say, why does that take so long? Well, you're dealing with interpreters. And you got to trust that the interpreter is interpreting both ways.
Okay, let me ask you something. How much English do you think Putin knows?
Enough.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. So anyway, as we said earlier, the attack from Ukraine with a bunch of pickup truck drones launched out of the back of pickup trucks hit so many of the critical aircraft on 5 different air bases.
Wow.
Now, this is, I don't know how they got this film, but this is a video of one of them been getting hit.
Wow.
Okay. Anyway, as you know, Ukraine launched, they planned this thing for 18 months. They launched all of these drones out, went to 5 military bases inside of Russia, and took out multiple aircraft. They're calling it Russia's Pearl Harbor.
That's amazing.
Okay. Putin is ticked. Oh, by the way, then they come along and they finish the bridge. They knock out the bridge.
Wow.
Okay, which is huge. So President Putin, President Trump are on the phone, and it didn't go very well. And basically, President Trump said, we had a nice talk, but nothing's leading to peace. And Putin is planning retaliation.
Okay. Oh, you just hit it. I have a question for you. When you mentioned that this is their Pearl Harbor, we know that our Pearl Harbor woke up a sleeping giant. And that was that attack decided the outcome of World War II on December 7th, 1941, because it woke up the sleeping giant, and our involvement really was what it took. Will it do the same to Russia?
Okay, great question. I don't know the answer to that, but there's some things that are going on in my mind. Russia is not as sophisticated militarily as anybody thinks it is.
Okay.
They have lost significantly in this war. Most of their ground units are tin cans.
Yeah.
They've lost thousands of their own people. They do have a lot of... What's left for them to use?
Well, that's a great question, yeah.
Nukes. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
What's the mindset of Putin, and why did he invade in the first place? You cannot, look, as corrupt as Ukraine is with all that leadership and all that stuff, and you can go back to all the other things, remember one thing, Ukraine did not invade itself.
Yeah.
Okay? So what is Russia up to, and why are they doing this, and how can they possibly, other than historical restoration, can they justify killing innocent people?
Right.
This is ego on steroids. And I don't know what Putin's got up his sleeve and what he's got left. But I don't think he's as strong as everybody thinks he is. I think he's a paper tiger. And the only thing that President Trump has left right now is instant severe sanctions. And guess what Putin doesn't have?
What?
I don't think he has the support of the citizenry.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, wouldn't you love to know what that's like, what the internal temperature there is for the population?
Look, I don't have intelligence.
Okay.
I'm just looking at this being a layperson.
Okay.
But this is serious stuff, and it could lead to World War III.
Might be right on the money, yeah.
It could lead to World War III.
Yeah.
Now this next story. I got to get all my story straight.
Okay.
I know you know about this.
Oh, no, okay.
But I'm trying to figure out how to handle this.
All right.
Former White House President Biden press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre.
Yes. Oh, yes.
She announced yesterday that she was leaving the Democratic Party and becoming an independent, while at the same time she's announcing her new book.
Right. And you know what? We've been asking, where is she? Well, now we know where she's been, right?
Okay.
She's been writing.
All right. I want you to listen to this from her. This is really, really interesting.
Okay.
Here's how she explains what she's done.
In an era of misinformation, disinformation, the regressiveness of social policy, what we're seeing currently right now, what I have decided to do, and I really have thought long and hard about this, is to follow my own compass. And that's what I've done. And that's what this book does. And here's the truth. And here's how I will lay it out to you. I think we need to stop thinking in boxes and think outside of our boxes and not be so partisan. And the way that I see moving forward in this space that we're in right now is if you are willing to stand side by side with me, regardless of your how you identify politically, and as long as you respect the community that I belong to and vulnerable communities that I respect, I will be there with you. I will move forward with you. And that is, I think, so important. So this book, Independent, it's about looking outside of boxes, not just always being in a partisan stance. And how do we move forward together in a compassionate way, in a way that really, truly cares about people?
I thought that was interesting when she said not in a partisan stance, yet we know that she was one of the chief folks out there who were really deflecting all of the Joe Biden is not competent and is having issues. She was on the forefront of dispelling all of that with basically one lie after another. And now she's going to try and persuade us not to stand on, partisan politics?
Well,
what?
Let me unpack this quickly. She wants to step outside the box while she's creating a box for people to get into. Come join me in my persuasion and the community that I belong to.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
What community is
That's
that?
the gay community.
Well, okay.
Yeah, right.
Because she's that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And believe what I believe.
Right.
So step out of your box and get into my box.
Get into my box.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'm not saying this because I want this to happen. So please understand this. I think the book will be a flop.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Okay.
What is there to know here?
Yeah.
If she's not squealing on the president,
right? What?
And it's not a kiss and tell of the White House.
Yeah.
Then what is she talking about?
I don't know. Well, didn't Jake Tapper cover it all anyway?
Well, we all wonder what happened. And look, this sounds like we're being bad here, but look, she's. This to me is just hypocrisy on steroids.
Yeah,
She's actually saying,
right.
Be like me without being one of the other people. Come join me because I am neutral and I want to love everybody. If you love the way I love and if you believe the way I believe, come on, get in my box.
Yeah.
But let's get outside the box and get into my box. So she's leaving the Democratic Party and becoming independent.
Independent. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, well, still very much a liberal. So anyway,
yeah,
I wish her well.
Right.
I don't mean this to be, I'm not predicting it. I just don't think there's anything attractive in the book from what I've read. I read a couple of the pre-releases on it. And I'm going, okay, this is just liberalism rewritten.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, what do we have today?
Today we have no, we had cheese yesterday. What do we have today?
I don't think you had any food.
I don't think we got. Do we have food today? Oh yeah, we got ketchup, man, and veggie burgers. So put some ketchup on your veggie burger.
Whoa.
No wonder we didn't remember it. There's no meat to bite into.
That's it. That's it. Her book is a veggie burger. We'll be right back. We'll be back.
Go where the wild runs deep. At Hellgate Jetboat Excursions, you feel the power of the mighty Rogue River as you take in the sights and sounds of nature, journey through Hellgate Canyon, and adventure through the breathtaking wilderness. Enjoy brunch or dinner on the open-air deck of the exclusive Hellgate River Lodge, and end your adventure with our exciting jetboat spins. It's a memory in the making with family and friends. Book your adventure at Hellgate.com. Hellgate Jetboat Excursions, where adventure runs wild.
Welcome to Rise Direct Primary Care. Imagine a healthcare experience where you're known by name, cared for like family, and treated with compassion. How is that possible? With an affordable, flat monthly membership, you receive unlimited primary care and minor urgent care visits. No insurance needed. At Rise Direct Primary Care, we offer a friendly, affordable healthcare experience where you get a whole hour with your provider. Located in Central Medford and accessible by phone or text, we can typically get you in the same or next day. We prescribe urgent care medications directly from our office, saving you a trip and wait time at the pharmacy when you'd rather be at home getting better. Personalized medical care with a human touch. Rise Direct Primary Care is all about healing the sick with compassion and keeping the healthy healthy. Rise Direct Primary Care. We're here for you. Visit risehealthdpc.com or call or text us 541-827-8603. 541-827-8603.
Drinking and doing drugs helped me numb the pain. And the pain brought so much desperation. I was afraid I would lose my family every day of that affair.
So many times I was ready. I was ready to pack up and go. I said no more. God, you could figure it out later, but I'm getting out of this house. And that's not what God wanted for me.
Watch the 700 Club Friday morning at 11 on the Dove TV.
Welcome back. 27 minutes past the hour on a beautiful Thursday morning, better known as Friday Eve. And as we move towards the warm to very warm temperature range these days. All right, now you were down. You have your mom down there in Central California.
Yeah.
And you've been down there. And you were driving along and you saw this long thing that didn't go anywhere.
It didn't go anywhere. It was coming right in from up by Madera, coming into Fresno. As you're heading south, you just see this huge monstrosity. And it looked like an element of the old Roman aqueducts, in the air. And I thought, what is that? And then we go through Fresno. On the other side, then here's another one. And they stop, but they don't connect.
Okay. It's called the light rail.
Oh, yeah, the high speed, yeah.
The high-speed light rail. Okay, well, look, the idea and the concept is actually pretty good. But what happened in California? Is this Gavin Newsom's Waterloo?
Oh, I would think so.
Okay, well, anyway, Secretary of Transportation Duffy talks about the damning report that reveals that $7 billion funding gap. $7 billion. And you know how many already been spent on this stupid thing?
Oh, huge.
And is it going to ever happen? Probably not.
I don't think so, yeah.
What a waste.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's what he had to say.
California high-speed rail, no viable path. We just released a report, 300 pages today, about how bad this project actually is. 15 years, $16 billion, not one high-speed rail track has been laid. The waste and the abuse, the mismanagement of this project has called for this investigation. Now, we're going to give California 30 days to respond to this report, but we have $4 billion on the line in this project. And again, I think we should have high-speed rail, but we're having real issues of whether this high-speed rail will actually be built. We want to invest in good projects in America, make sure your tax dollars are spent well. That's what we're fighting for here at DOT.
Okay, so I just don't know where this is going to end up. It is a complete failure.
Yeah.
And billions and billions of dollars. I remember when they were trying to improve BART, the Bay Area Rapid Transit, and as you came into the Bay Area, they were taxing you extra money on gas to upgrade BART.
Oh.
Have you ever ridden on BART?
I have not, no.
I did one time. Well, a couple of times, but the one time I didn't know I was taking it to the city. I knew I was going to the city. I had no idea that we were going through the tunnel.
How was that? Huh?
Man. I got out the other side and I go, the only bad thing about getting there is I had to get back.
I was going to ask you, how did you get back? Did you get back on it?
You had to. I mean, I was stuck. But anyway, so I don't know where this thing's going to go. It looks like it's a catastrophic failure.
Yeah.
And everything that the government touches ends up like this.
Right.
And this is crazy.
Yes.
All right. Well, here's an interesting one. Are we about ready to see, this is rhetorical.
Okay.
Are we about ready to see one of our U.S. senators in Oregon retire?
Oh. Which one?
I'm going to speculate that it's Wyden.
Okay.
And here's Senator Wyden. Right. Why? Because Senate Bill 952 is now heading to Governor Kotek's desk for signature, and this would allow the state's chief executive officer to appoint a person in the Senate seats that opens up unexpectedly. Okay. Now, Oregon didn't have this, but now will become a lot of states that have. The majority of the states allow gubernatorial appointments if this occurs, if there's a vacancy occurs. Why are they pushing this bill through?
Yeah.
Why are they doing this? Yeah. Well, this is politics. It's raw. So if Senator Wyden decides that he's had enough, he wouldn't say, I'm not running for re-election.
Okay.
He would retire while he's in office so that she could point somebody.
Right.
Okay, and that person now becomes the incumbent.
Right.
It is pretty much the shoe-in.
Right.
This is how liberals work.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So we'll see. But apparently, Senate Bill 952 is going to get signed by the governor. Okay. This is a caution. Everybody, yellow light. Where's our yellow light?
Oh, yeah.
Wait a minute. You got that? Hold on.
This is a caution.
Put it on the blink. Is it blinking? Okay, here's a caution. Okay. If you see a fawn, baby deer, that appears to be abandoned, it most likely is not.
Okay. All right.
A lot of people have come across fawns that appear to be abandoned.
Yeah.
And they're picking them up, and this is not good. Now, you can notify the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and let them come out and take a look. But sometimes the mom steps away.
Yes. Yes.
And they could be just lying down. I mean, they're babies.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, but apparently there's been an unusual amount of people rescuing seemingly abandoned fawn in the local forest, and the ODFW is saying, stop. Notify us. Let us come take a look at this. Now, it could be that they are abandoned.
Yeah, maybe.
But there's a high probability that they're not.
Right.
So be careful.
Right.
Their mom is just off in the bushes somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
So this is unusual because they've had a high amount of people doing this, picking them up. Wow. And all of a sudden, when you pick them up, now they really are abandoned, and now somebody's responsible for taking care of this.
Right.
So I would say just notify the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and let them come out and take a look and see what's going on.
Great idea.
And one other quick note, congratulations, Chad McComas. He's the guy that's so passionately behind Joy Community. Phase 1, this is where they're building these small little houses for seniors, homeless seniors.
Yeah.
Well, Phase 1 is about to open, and they have people lined up ready to go.
All right.
And it's just down the street here, maybe 10 blocks down the street. Chad, so passionate. God bless you, pal. Thanks for your hard work on that.
All right.
All right, let's take a look at the satellite image. Here's what's going on out there, and it's severe clear and warming up. Could see triple digits.
Yep, not bad today. We're looking at 79, low 80s tomorrow, but climbing into the 90s by Friday and upper 90s by Sunday before it starts to back down. We'll get back down into the 70s again eventually next week, but it's going to be a warm weekend out there.
All right.
So be careful. Okay, well, this is interesting because on Newsmax's National Report, Florida Representative Brian Mast advocated for deeper budget cuts aiming for $2 trillion in reductions across government spending and responds to this clip of Rand Paul.
We know now that the White House is going to ask Congress this week for some rescissions. Sounds like it's just $9.4 billion, and it's PBS, it's NPR, and it's foreign aid. Is this really the best strategy? And do you think 51 Republican senators are on board with it?
First of all, I will vote for spending cuts. The more, the better. This is very, very small. To put it in perspective, if the deficit this year is $2.2 trillion, if you cut $9 billion, the deficit's going to be $2.191 trillion. It really doesn't materially change the course of the country.
Yeah, let me start with the senator's remarks. Look, I agree. I want to see more cuts. I hope that the Senate in total finds $2 trillion in cuts out there. I have my doubts as to whether they can get 51 people in the Senate to agree to $2 trillion in cuts, but I hope that they do it. As I said about these rescissions that we're talking about right now, the roughly $10 billion, that largely comes from one area and one area alone. That's the State Department primarily, my area of jurisdiction. I want to see those levels and higher cuts coming from every area of government. We're just talking about one lane of government largely right now, the State Department. And then as we talk about, what Elon Musk was saying about this bill and saying looking for more cuts, looking for a reduction in spending. Again, I want to see that. You're not going to find for me an amount of cuts that are too great great because remember, in the end, all of the spending comes out of the pocket of the American people, and what doesn't come out of the pocket of an individual is borrowed and then layered on them as debt that they have to repay later. So we need to get rid of all of it, but they need to have 51 people in the Senate to do it.
Let me ask you a question. How do you eat an elephant?
How do you what?
Eat an elephant.
One bite at a time.
Isn't this the first bite?
Yes.
What's wrong with this?
Yeah, I don't.
You guys don't have the fortitude to do the first bite?
Right.
You're trying to eat the whole thing in one?
That is so appropriate. You right on the money.
All right.
They got to bite in somewhere, don't they?
I don't know. Remember, we're not talking veggie burgers here. We'll be right back.
All right.
Grange Co-op, where big ideas grow.
Since 1987, Four Seasons Nursery has been the gold standard in the green industry here in Southern Oregon. Tim Albert and his friendly staff continue to offer the best plants and most accurate knowledge to create your dream landscape. At Four Seasons Nursery on Crater Lake Avenue, you can let your imagination run wild with a huge selection of all things plant and gardening for both inside and outside beautification. Whether it's a flower for your window seal, one of our beautifully renowned signature hanging baskets, or a complete landscape design for your entire property, Four Seasons Nursery can help you every step of the way with design services, workshops, and more. Let your imagination run wild as you immerse yourself in their nursery filled with beauty that knows no bounds. Four Seasons Nursery, 5736 Crater Lake Avenue, 5736 Crater Lake Avenue, 1/2 mile north of Vilas Road, 541-779-5603, 541-779-5603.
Looking to find loyal, reliable customers to grow your business? The Dove is a perfect place to reach them. Hello, I'm Nancy Worth, Vice President of Marketing and Sales at The Dove. The Dove, reaching over 6 million consumers on a daily basis. The Dove offers a faithful audience who will appreciate and remember your partnership. Partner with The Dove and watch your business flourish. Sound good? Find out more. Call or email me, Nancy Worth, at The Dove today.
All right, welcome back. 21 minutes before the hour. The president on the phone with President Putin. That went for an hour and 15. Didn't seem to really generate a whole lot. In the meantime, the ugly head of Iran continues to be a threat. So let's check in with CBN Newswatch and see what's going on.
This is CBN Newswatch.
It is Thursday, June 5th. We begin this half hour in the Middle East as President Trump is warning Iran its time is running out to make a deal of its nuclear program, even as Iran remains defiant. And today, Israel recovered the bodies of 2 Israeli Americans in Gaza. The couple died in October 7th, by the Hamas attacks. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell brings us the story now and more from Jerusalem.
Israel announced today the IDF and Shin Bet recovered the bodies of Israeli Americans Judy Weinstein and Gadi Haggai in a special operation. Both were murdered on October 7th at Kibbutz Nir Oz. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said all the citizens of Israel extend heartfelt condolences to the families. 56 hostages remain in captivity. 20 are thought to be still alive. The U.S. vetoed a UN Security Council resolution calling for a permanent and unconditional ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hamas, but did not demand Hamas disarm or release the remaining hostages. 14 members supported the resolution.
The United States has been clear. We would not support any measure that fails to condemn Hamas and does not call for Hamas to disarm and leave Gaza.
Israel's UN ambassador applauded the U.S. action.
Thank you for refusing to abandon the hostages and for refusing to legitimize the lies of this resolution.
As the Trump administration continues its attempt at a nuclear deal with Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei remains defiant about the demand to stop enriching uranium.
Who are you to interfere and say Iran should or shouldn't have uranium enrichment? What's that to you?
President Trump is lashing out on Truth Social, writing, "Time is running out on Iran's decision pertaining to nuclear weapons, which must be made quickly. It is my opinion that Iran has been slow-walking their decision on this very important matter, and we will need a definitive answer in a very short period of time." Trump originally gave the negotiators 2 months to come up with a deal. That deadline expires next week. The president is also taking action in the aftermath of an attack on Jewish demonstrators in Boulder, Colorado, by issuing a travel ban and restrictions on 19 countries. 15 survivors of the attack spoke out at a vigil.
I'll say I feel perfectly safe here in Boulder. I absolutely do. I'll say I was wrong, but I was absolutely felt safe. This was not okay. It really, really was not okay.
At the White House, CBN News' Kelly Wright asked Caroline Levitt what the government can do about anti-Semitism.
Can these entities and these agencies work together with the president to put out a proactive campaign to help people stop the hate?
I think the president himself has been leading on this, Kelly, and has been incredibly clear in his rhetoric that he is not going to tolerate such hate or behavior in the United States of America.
The Boulder attack followed the murders of 2 Israeli embassy employees in Washington, D.C. in May, Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram.
And Chris Mitchell joins us now with more. Chris, let's begin with Trump's warning to Iran. Is the feeling there in Israel that time really is running out for Iran and that a strike on its nuclear facilities could be coming?
Well, Ephraim, right now, Israel has really been waiting for weeks to see about which way these negotiations will go. And now it seems they've reached an impasse. The big obstacle, as we reported, is enriching uranium. Iran says they won't stop, and the U.S. says they must. So the question is, where do we go from here? We wonder what the White House will do, what President Trump will do as this deadline expires. But I believe that Israel is ready for a potential nuclear strike against the nuclear facilities. They know that Iran is ideologically and theologically committed to these nuclear weapons. As we mentioned before, Ephraim, they have this belief in the return of the Shia Messiah, the Mahdi, that will come when the world is in chaos. So Israel here doesn't believe diplomacy is going to work and hasn't going to work throughout all these negotiations. And they feel the military option really is the only way to stop Iran.
All right, well, we're heading down that road. Just a matter of time. If the Ayatollah says no, 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 then what? So, yeah. All right.
Well, when you think of the most famous swimmers of all, you might think of like Mark Spitz, Michael Phelps, but instead you need to think of somebody else. Johnny Weissmuller.
On a warm Chicago afternoon, the water rippled with history in the making. Johnny Weissmuller, the son of Hungarian immigrants, stepped onto the edge of the pool with quiet determination. The starting pistol cracked. Johnny exploded into the water, and in under a minute, he touched the wall. 51 seconds, a new 100-yard freestyle world record. The crowd roared, but Johnny wasn't done. Minutes later, he dove back in for the 200-yard. Smooth, relentless strokes carried him to another world record, 1 minute 51.4 seconds. His powerful, graceful strokes defied the norms of his time. Untouchable in the water, he was dubbed the human fish. But Johnny's story didn't end at the pool's edge. In the 1930s, Hollywood came calling. With his athletic build and primal yell, Weissmuller became Tarzan, the vine-swinging jungle hero. He starred in 12 Tarzan films, becoming a pop culture icon and introducing millions to the roar that would echo through the generations. From gold medals to the silver screen, Johnny Weissmuller was more than a swimmer, and all things considered, he was arguably more famous than the combined celebrity of Mark Spitz and Michael Phelps. He was a legend, born in water and immortalized in film.
That was awesome. Now that's what you need on your alarm to wake up in the morning.
That's cool. We ought to put that on the alarm. By the way, one little quick note.
Okay.
When I was a pilot flying for KCRA radio for years over Sacramento, I'd fly over the Carmichael Swim and Tennis Club, and that's where Mark Spitz would work out every morning, and I would report whether or not he was in the pool.
No way.
Yep.
No.
That's where he started.
That's cool.
We'd fly over, and if he was in the pool, I'd mention it on the air. Yeah.
All right.
Well, Charlie Kirk, he's one of these guys that's always interesting, and he talks about the key to having a national revival.
I was wondering, why doesn't the right have, like, the left has dominated culture for so long. They had, the feminist movement. We can blame that for destroying the nuclear home. We can blame that for destroying marriages in a lot of ways. But how do we kind of work backwards from that, kind of get back to, like, the core American values, lower the divorce rate, lower single motherhood, things like that? It doesn't seem to be like a practical solution that's been even attempted by the right.
Well, the practical solution, we don't have to think. We need to point people to God and eventually to Jesus Christ, and that is the solution, is that people need to humble themselves before the Lord. They need to go back to church. They need to get married before they have sex. They need to stop engaging in debauchery and limitless amounts of drinking and the sins of the flesh, and understand that there's a God who loves them, that wants them to live a certain way. And it's not a matter of the feminist movement or the Black Lives Matter movement. We need a movement that is centered around spiritual, eternal principles. And make America holy again, make America Christian again. But a revival will only happen with repentance, and repentance is at odds with pride. And so we have an entire month dedicated to pride, by the way, which is you must acknowledge two things. There is a God, and we are not him. Those two things are fundamental towards having, hopefully, the humility of getting in front of your Creator, understanding that you fall short of the glory of God with the eyes on the cross and understanding the significance of what the cross is and what it means for your life. And with that will come widespread nationwide change. We are seeing some promising trends. Church attendance is slightly going up. Gen Z, especially Gen Z men, are more religious than millennial men, and it is increasing and growing. And young women, we got some things to work through. But we will not save the country just through politics. Politics is a means towards an end, a means towards liberty. But liberty is not man's idea; it's God's idea. And we are only able to experience that liberty if we are a moral and religious people. And I'll close with the statement with this, that the Constitution is incompatible with a faithless nation. You will not have a free society if the country goes atheist. You will not have a free society if the country goes secular. That sounds provocative, but it's true, is that liberty and freedom cannot coexist with a nation that does not believe in a higher power.
Tell it, Charlie. All right.
That is stunning.
Yeah, it is.
Gosh, there's hope, isn't there?
Yeah.
All right, 11 minutes before the hour as we check out Veggie Burgers.
The right cleaning company matters. Choose Dust Plus Cleaning and Carpet Care, a family-owned company proudly serving Grants Pass and nearby communities for over 25 years. We're passionate about delivering the best, whether it's carpets, using purified water for no window spots, or carefully washing solar panels. We're committed to superb customer service from start to finish. Radiant spaces from local professionals. Request a free quote today.
Stewardship begins with the knowledge that nothing belongs to us, but everything belongs to the Lord. This helps us to run a business not in the fear of lack, but in the assurance of His care and provision. Such a perspective eliminates the drive to sell and replaces it with a heart that says serve. This begins with serving our clients and coworkers with integrity and genuine care. That's why McKelly's is automotive service with a heart for God, and treating others as we ourselves would want to be treated. Our promise is to never sell our clients anything we don't believe they need. Another is to do all we can to meet other needs, such as shuttle service and loaner cars, or taking the time to really listen, even at times praying with our customers. Sometimes this means sacrifice, going above and beyond.
But that's why I work for Kelly's Automotive Service, honoring God while serving people with honesty and integrity.
How can Christian parents train their kids to know and follow God's design for sexuality in a culture that increasingly rejects it?
Join us as we uncover the damaging misinformation being fed to your children on sexuality and gender identity, and learn effective strategies for grounding them in biblical truth with confidence and grace.
Join me for the John Ankerberg Show weekdays at 4 o'clock right here on the Dove TV. It'll be encouraging and informative.
Good morning to you. Things get a little hot everywhere these days, whether it's summer or not, especially in some of these Judiciary Committee hearings in Washington, D.C. And this is where Josh Hawley has a pretty intense exchange with the University of Pennsylvania law professor Kate Shaw over some of the issues that they're talking about as it relates to these rogue judges and everything. Anyway, here's a little bit of the exchange.
We can go round and round on this. Here's the thing. We've now gone 6 minutes, and Senator Kennedy had you for 6 or 7. You couldn't identify a single principled basis. We all know the truth here, which is it's not just you. It's most of my colleagues over here on this side of the aisle, who I respect a great deal, and they were raising very principled objections to the nationwide injunction just 6 months ago, maybe 9 now. And you're probably right. My point is that all that's changed in 9 months is the occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And I realize that my colleagues on this side of the aisle very much dislike that individual, and I realize that you think that the rulings that he has lost are fundamentally sound. We might grant all of that. I disagree with all of that, but we can put that to one side. The question we're talking about here is, should judges, single judges, district court judges, be able to bind non-parties who are not in front of them? And you used to say no, now you say yes. Let's be consistent. I would just suggest to you our system of government cannot survive if it's going to be politics all the way down. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can I briefly respond?
Sure.
I mean, you invoked democracy a couple of times there, Senator. Judges are part of our system of democracy. Democracy is not as simple as majority rule. Judges have always served something of a
You would have it be as simple as
function.
majority rule. When you get the majority you like, you're for the nationwide injunction. When you don't, you're not.
Senator Blumenthal.
Wow. Okay, and Senator Kennedy also really trapped her because he read her words when the shoe was on the other foot.
Okay.
So this is what's being taught in law school. This is the University of Pennsylvania law professor. You need an Alan Dershowitz, who's well known as a liberal. To come back and say, this is what the law says, this is how it's applied. But we have become partisan at all levels, and it gets a little sickening and it wears you out. But this stuff has to be exposed. As ugly and nasty as it is, it has to be exposed.
I like your idea about bringing Alan Dershowitz into the argument, though. He is really uncomfortable for the left because he is one of them, but he has a focus on the law.
He does. He's a constitutional authority, and he understands it. But the point being is you can't have it both ways. And the hypocrisy of this, you know what? Modern technology and communication has made it available for us now to become informed.
Yes.
Up until the last maybe 4 or 5 years, it still was a struggle to find out the other side of the other opinion. Today, you instantly have it on a phone or your computer or your laptop, whatever. You can instantly find out. You can watch these hearings and see the hypocrisy. You can see the exposure of all this. And America's waking up. Back to Charlie Kirk. If you take Gen X, and you take what's the one about? You got Gen Z, X, millennials. All right. You take all these people and you put them together. You know what they're upset about?
What?
Who do I trust?
We've
been lied to so long, so much. We don't know who to trust. Well, there's only one answer to that. We need to have a genuine revival. And when I'm hearing these young people begin to clap the fact that the only answer is Christ, something is moving. I think there is a universal feeling out there across the globe that the world is falling apart. You know, you can't have Russia and Ukraine doing this to each other. Okay, you can't have Iran over here wanting to kill people just because they don't like them. So I think the people are feeling that something's really something's brewing here.
Something's moving. Yeah.
Yeah, so is God stirring things? And guess what? He's going to stir the pot whether you like it or not. He's not going to stir it necessarily to your theology.
Well, that is true. That's a good point.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so much for all that. James 1, verse 12. Great scripture. This is the brother of Jesus. Blessed is the one who preserves under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. Guess what? Standing during the trial.
Yes. Amen.
Okay. Oh, look at that. That camera switched on us real quick. Anyway, beautiful shot of Southern Oregon. We'll take a quick non-burger break. Oh, veggie burger break.
You had it right.
Finding that next great series to binge watch is fun, but your neck, shoulders, and body don't count that as me time. Hi, I'm Tamara Miller, owner of Organic Element Spa, and I invite you to put down the remote, get off the couch, and schedule yourself some real me or we time with your favorite service, like one of our many massages, couples massages, or facials. Your health, safety, and comfort are always top priority with us at Organic Element Spa. We can't wait to see you. Book your appointment today.
From top home sellers in the Valley with John L. Scott,
to making RV consignment effortless.
American RV, where Team Toner gets your RV sold fast.
What if your next ride was more than just a ride?
What if it was an epic adventure filled with unforgettable memories?
At Panoramic Moto Tours, we take you beyond the ordinary, offering curated routes, privately guided with all the details handled.
Our passion is to share the joy of riding incredible roads, exploring new sights and towns, and connecting with others and sharing our stories.
Sound good to you?
What are you waiting for? Let's create your custom tour, or join us on one of our upcoming tours.
The Lost Coast and Trinity Alps, May 16th through the 19th, or the Oregon Coast and Cascades Tour, June 22nd through the 26th. Just click the Tours tab at panoramicmototours.com or call 541-622-3844.
panoramicmototours.com. Your next adventure starts here.
Life is complicated enough. Why worry about what to do with your extra car? Skip the costs of maintaining it, storing it, insuring it, or renewing registration. Car repairs? Forget about it. Here's one easy solution to your car problem. Donate it to our station. It's fast, free, tax deductible, and if you donate, you're going to feel incredible knowing you're supporting quality programming. Interested? Just call this toll-free number or donate online. Thank you.
Romans 1:20 tells us God's power is revealed in creation. Yet 2 Corinthians 4:4 reminds us that Satan has blinded many to the gospel. At the Life Outdoors, we've seen the truth of God, His eternal power and divine nature displayed in every mountain and stream. Follow along and let's wake the wild within. The mountains don't lie. Where there's truth, there's Jesus.
The Dove TV, encouraging, informative, and your home for Wretched TV weeknights at 9 p.m.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Mornings on the Dove on this beautiful Thursday morning, better known as Friday Eve, where Jerry Bilden is kicking and ready to go. Wound up. He's caffeinated up. He's wound up.
That's the truth.
He put some jalapeno on his toast this morning. He's ready to go.
Absolutely. And good morning.
Anyway, good morning to you. A lot going on in the news. There always is. We'll get to that. The weather, in a nutshell, it's warm and getting warmer.
Yeah.
And so here we go. But nice, you know, we don't see the hot stuff. Now, other places do. Redding, Central California, it's going to heat up, so we'll get you posted on that. So good morning, a lot going on in the news. We'll get you caught up on that. Anything special?
Well, if at first you don't succeed, try again.
Yep.
It is National Start Over Day, and I think we've all heard that slogan or saying at one time or other in our life, and it certainly applies to, I think, sometimes many times in our life. What are you facing right now that you're struggling with, that you maybe got squelched on? It's time to turn it back up. Try it again.
Yeah, the Bible says you get knocked down 7 times, 70, and you can just get up and keep going.
Yeah.
And I love the scripture in Psalm where it says, His mercies are new every morning. Not once a quarter, and not once in a lifetime, and not when you just come to Christ. You read that scripture. His mercies are new every morning. So you woke up this morning, you got a whole new batch of mercies to work on.
Yes.
Or to work with.
Yeah. All right, well, keep it going. It's also, this is an unusual time of the year for this, but it is National Gingerbread Day. This is something we usually associate with the holidays, right? But obviously, cookies or bars with ginger in them, also honey and molasses rather than just sugar. And gingerbread foods range from a soft, moist loaf or even a soft cookie to something closer to a ginger biscuit, which brings up the old debate, especially with just cookies in general, soft and chewy or crunchy and more like a ginger biscuit. What do you prefer?
I don't care.
I don't care.
Yeah, they're both good.
Yeah. I like Sharon's. Sharon has chewy cookies. Yeah, she brings us cookies.
Oh, yeah.
They're chewy.
Yeah.
Oh, they're so good. Anyway.
Calm down, girls. Calm down. There's only 5 of us here. We love you, but...
Yeah. The only trouble I have with that really is when Sharon's cookies are there and we got Judy's, breakfast burritos. So what do I eat first?
I know.
Anyway.
You know what's bad?
What?
You and I are on the air for 2 hours. Those guys in there...
They're all eating.
They're only 3 feet away from it.
That's true. There's a special kind of torture there. Anyway, put some ketchup on it. It is National Ketchup Day.
Right.
Ketchup coming from the Chinese word ketchup, dating back to 300 BC in China, but it was made from fermented fish. It was fish sauce. It consisted of anchovies or oysters, mushrooms, and walnuts. It became very popular with British sailors during the 17th century, and they hauled it home, and they brought it back, and then it started to evolve, and by 1812, an American scientist named James Meese documented the first tomato-based ketchup recipe, and then contemporary tomato ketchup became widely popular around 1876, and that's when that guy, Heinz, H.J. Heinz, introduced his version of ketchup in a thick consistency and a sweet flavor. He spent a lot of hours experimenting with the quality ingredients like sugar and vinegar to help with longer shelf life, and the recipe that he used in 1876 is what you pour out of your bottle today.
Can you say John Kerry?
John Kerry. Oh, he's living the life on the Heinz fortune, isn't he?
Yeah, he married his granddaughter.
Yeah, flying private jets around.
Flying private jets
around to...
talking about carbon print footprint.
To green conferences. I love that. We always love that kind of deal.
I have to say one thing.
What?
I'm all for private jets.
Yeah, okay, I'm not going to dispute
I'm all for them. I just want to fly one.
I just want to ride on one.
Okay.
That's it. Okay. And then put your ketchup on your veggie burger because it is National Veggie Burger Day. It's packed with flavor, protein, and nutrients. They show up at backyard barbecues, tailgate parties, and on the menus of high-class restaurants. And whether you grill them, fry them, or bake them, these burgers are worth taking a bite out of. Just like a standard beef burger, you can layer all your favorite toppings, onions, tomato, lettuce, cheese, ketchup, and mustard between crusty roller bun and take a big, juicy bite. It's the only way to celebrate this flavorful day. I can't remember the last time I had a veggie burger, but I have eaten them, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
They're good.
Yeah.
All
right, now something important.
Yeah.
Did you know the number one item sold out of Costco, and some people know this, the number one item is toilet paper, and Costco sells enough toilet paper per year to wrap around the earth 1,200 times.
Wow.
They sell over 1 billion rolls of Kirkland toilet paper every year, accounting for 15% of all toilet paper sales in the United States, and the average Costco member purchases 78 rolls of Kirkland toilet paper annually, spending about $54 on it, and toilet paper is the best-selling Costco product, generating over $400 million in annual sales.
Well,
wow.
It was really interesting during COVID how toilet paper at Costco got rationed.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, we came out of our cloistered existence on the week that the world shut down, and our daughter told us, on your way home in Nevada, you better stop at Costco because there's nothing in ours. And we pulled into the parking lot, and I thought I was in an apocalypse movie. People were rolling out of Costco with stuff this high in their carts, and the first few had toilet paper that high in their carts. The rest had none. That's because they had none after that. We walked in there, and it was surreal. Wow. So what is it about toilet? Why is that like probably the number one, or at least one of the number one items that people hoard?
Well, think about this.
Okay.
What happens when you don't have it?
Say no more.
That's the problem.
Say no more. I get it.
Yep. That's the problem.
All right.
All right, here's a guy that puts hot sauce on his ginger cookies.
With high pressure parked over the Pacific Northwest, warm, dry weather will continue through early next week. So today in northern Oregon and southern Washington, gradually becoming sunny with highs in the low to mid 80s for Vancouver, Portland, Wilsonville, and McMinnville. Moving down the Willamette Valley, partly sunny, then gradually becoming sunny with highs in the low 80s for Salem, Albany, Corvallis, and Eugene, with a north wind 5 to 9 miles per hour this morning. In central Oregon, sunny skies with daytime high temperatures in the low 80s in Prineville and mid to upper 70s for Bend and Sun River. Over in Boise, Idaho, sunny with highs in the mid 80s and a low tonight in the mid 50s. Along the Oregon coast, becoming sunny and breezy with a high near 67 in Coos Bay. Sunny and breezy with highs in the low to mid 60s for Port Orford, Brookings, and Crescent City, California, with gusts up to 33 miles per hour. In southern Oregon, sunshine in the Rogue Valley with daytime high temperatures in the low to mid 80s for Grants Pass, Medford, and Ashland. In the Klamath Basin, sunny with highs near 83 and lows in the mid 50s. Into northern California, sunny with a high in the mid-80s for Wairika. Sunny in Redding and Chico with high temperatures in the mid-90s, but not quite as warm in Sacramento with daytime highs in the upper 80s. In the Bay Area, patchy fog, then gradually becoming sunny with highs near 77 in Santa Rosa and Napa. Sunny and breezy in San Francisco with a high in the upper 60s and winds gusting up to 28 miles per hour. And today in San Jose, sunny and mid-80s. It's a look at your Thursday weather on the Dove.
And there's a beautiful picture for those watching on the Dove Radio. We're showing you the Southern Oregon. Gosh, isn't that pretty? Mm-hmm. We call that home. Mm-hmm. Beautiful place.
Well, we know that some folks, when they hear the truth of the gospel, they come to the Lord as soon as they hear it. But that's not always the case with everybody. Sometimes folks take a little while to move towards the Lord. Sometimes it can be frustrating if you're sharing and it doesn't happen under your watch. But Pastor Jack Hibbs encourages us that now is the acceptable time to consider living forever with Jesus.
For he says, God says, in an acceptable time I have heard you, and in the day of salvation I have helped you. Paul goes on, behold, now is the accepted time. Behold, now is the day of salvation. You know what's awesome about this? It's technical, but I think you would appreciate this. This is Isaiah 49, verse 8, but what's amazing is Paul here is quoting verbatim, not from the Hebrew Bible. He's quoting from the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. This is exactly what it says in the Greek language. In other words, you say, well, who cares? We do for this reason. Paul is using the street language of the day to speak a biblical truth so that all would understand. The book of the Hebrew Bible says it clear enough, a little bit different, but clear enough. Here Paul, a Jew, Hebrew, is speaking to the Corinthians, pagans, and he's using the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, which preceded Paul by several centuries. And what's his argument? Now, how about this, church? Now's the acceptable time for you to consider living forever with Christ, forgiven of your sins, given a new life and a new meaning. And oh, by the way, don't receive that grace in vain. Join us And let's tell the world together that sins can be forgiven. Life can be lived all over again. God can give you security of eternal life in heaven. And when you finish your course in this world, Christ receives you into his glory. What's better than that? What's better than that? There's nothing better than that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jack Hibbs. Simple, powerful.
Yep.
All right, good morning to you. Let's take a look at some of the top stories of the day. And, of course, the one that a couple of things dominated the news over the last 24 hours. One is Elon Musk is not a happy camper, and he is asking people to call their representatives and their senators to vote against the big, beautiful bill. And he has been posting this on X, trying to get people out to kill the bill, is basically. And why? As you know, he and President Trump have had a little falling out over the bill. He thinks it's an abomination. And yet, I don't know if this is just a battle of the billionaires here. But we didn't know this, but the bill completely eliminated the electric car manufacturing, the tax credits. And I guess this would be enough to really upset him.
Okay.
But he's saying the largest electric car manufacturing in America certainly is Tesla, and they would lose the $7,500 tax credit for a new EV, $4,000 for a used EV, and a $1,000 credit for the level 2 charge installations, which means at your home. So I can see where this was going to really impact the EV industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
boy, it must be kind of, I bet Elon's a little bit worried for a couple of reasons. First of all, if the tax credits disappear, that obviously hurts his business model. But we also know that he is, to the left, he is kind of turned into the enemy, hasn't he? And and they not only are not buying Teslas, but we saw this whole bunch of, activism where they're keying them, burning up dealerships, the whole thing. So what's in store for him business-wise with his car company?
Well, look, he's got to get back to business here.
I think so.
And he has to deal with the reality. But this ongoing tax credit for EVs is going to come to an end. And that's going to put great pressure on that part of the auto industry, and they're going to have to compete like everybody else.
Yes.
And so, yes, he would be tremendously upset. This is probably one of the great motivators to buy an EV, because the post side of buying an EV is not good.
Yeah.
What do you do with a bad battery?
Right.
What do you do with a car that normally you drive off the car lot and depreciates 30%, but on an EV, the resale value is through the floor?
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
And so I don't know. He's upset about it, and they have parted ways. And the only thing, I think there's an ulterior motive, in my opinion. It really took a lot of heat from the left off of him.
Yeah.
By him turning on the president. That could be part of the motive.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
In the meantime, President Trump was on the phone yesterday with President Putin for an hour and 15 minutes. You got to remember they're talking through interpreters. And it's pretty much said now that the Ukraine attacking Russia, 5 military bases, destroying all kinds of, this is highly sophisticated aircraft that they took out. They did it with drones launched out of the back of pickup trucks. This thing was planned for 18 months. Wow. And they're calling it now Russia's Pearl Harbor. And President Putin told President Trump, have a nice day, we're going to retaliate. The question is, what's left to retaliate and how?
Yeah.
So President Trump said they had a good talk, but they don't think much is going to come of any kind of negotiations now for some kind of peace treaty. Look, how can I say this? To take out a sophisticated military operation as big as Russia is on 5 separate bases with low-flying drones launched out of the back of a truck, that's about as embarrassing as it gets.
Yeah.
And they took out the big bridge, too. So,
and you know what?
Putin's really upset because he's losing the war.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, because I see the connection between Pearl Harbor and this, because they're both, sneak attacks. You know what the big difference is? We weren't at war at the time. So we weren't prepared. We weren't really on a war standing or a war footing. But they are. They got caught with, with napping.
They got caught sleeping.
Yes.
And there's so many things there. America didn't know about it.
Yeah, right.
Nobody knew about it.
Right.
This is the unsophisticated Ukraine military responding. with drones.
Out of pickup trucks. And
it's
crazy.
Stunning, and it's embarrassing, and he's upset. I don't know what's left of Russian military to do anything. I'm sure they have a lot of missiles and stuff. Look, you look back on this, Ukraine's taken out Navy ships. Now they destroyed a significant amount of the reconnaissance planes, all kinds of stuff that was big stuff in the air defense of Russia. Now, back off all this. Understand one simple little thing. Ukraine didn't invade itself.
True.
What's this all about?
Yeah.
You got leadership in Ukraine, which is anything but stellar.
Yeah.
And you got an ego-driven guy in Russia that wants to gain the homeland back and call it justification.
Right, and you're right, because you touched on it there, because there's a long history of them in the region, in the Crimea. But I think, so with that in mind, and I think you add on top of that a very weak leadership in the United States at the time, which was the Biden administration, I think it just gave him the opportunity.
Well, we'll see where this goes, but it's not going to be pretty. Okay, in the meantime, we have all these problems over in Iran, and we'll bring that up to you in just a moment. This is an interesting story. I bring it only because you kind of go, what? We've been asking the question, where is Karine Jean-Pierre, who was the former White House secretary under President Biden? She didn't pop. Normally, when you leave the press secretary, you pop up on a network.
Yep.
She didn't.
No, she disappeared.
She disappeared. Well, she appeared.
Yeah.
And she now appeared yesterday saying that she's leaving the Democratic Party. She's becoming an independent. Why? Because she has a book out. She wants to promote it. And here's what she had to say.
In an era of misinformation, disinformation, the regressiveness of social policy, what we're seeing currently right now, what I have decided to do, and I really have thought long and hard about this, is to follow my own compass. And that's what I've done. And that's what this book does. And here's the truth, and here's how I will lay it out to you. I think we need to stop thinking in boxes and think outside of our boxes and not be so partisan. And the way that I see moving forward in this space that we're in right now is if you are willing to stand side by side with me, regardless of your how you identify politically, and as long as you respect the community that I belong to and vulnerable communities that I respect, I will be there with you. I will move forward with you. And that is, I think, so important. So this book, Independent, it's about looking outside of boxes, not just always being in a partisan stance. And how do we move forward together in a compassionate way, in a way that really, truly cares about people?
I bet I know how she wants us to move forward. Buy her book.
Well, look, if you listen to that, she said carefully, get out of all your boxes, but get into mine.
Right. Right.
Okay, and my box is join the community that I love. Well, what is that community? She's LGBTQ.
Right, that's why she says, she talks about the regressiveness of our social policy now.
So get out of that box and join. And let's not have parties, but come into my box and let's just be this new movement.
Yeah.
Okay, she can believe what she wants to believe, but and believe the way I believe. Okay, well, look, I guess, God bless her. Hope she does well and finds the Lord down the road. But the only thing I can think of is here, she may have done herself immense damage because by leaving the Democratic Party and becoming independent and trying to be some kind of a social justice medium, she may have precluded herself from going on the very talk shows she needs to promote her book.
That's a great point
because she's no longer a D. And believe me, those talk shows, so you have to be a hard D to get there.
Right, so you don't think Whoopi and, Joy.
I'll be surprised if she shows up on The View.
Okay.
Even though she's been there in the past.
Oh, yeah, they love her.
I don't know now.
But she's not a D now. Yeah, interesting.
I'll say that the book will probably not do well. I think it'll flop. Who cares? I mean, who cares? I mean, I read 3 press releases on the book, and I'm going, Okay.
Yeah.
She wants to be socially medium.
Do you have any inclination about what she's writing about? Is she writing about behind the scenes in the White House? Is she talking about the cognitive disabilities of the president or covering them? What is it?
From what I understand is that the battle that she had in the White House was the hard partisanship she dealt with as the press secretary. Okay, and I understand that is a battle. I get it.
Sure.
I mean, that's just the nature of that job.
Right.
But no, she's trying to, we shouldn't, we're so hard politics. But then she turns around and says, you have to be like me to be acceptable. I go, okay, well, whatever. I mean, very confused people.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes counseling doesn't work.
But you have to go to see.
You know, there's two solutions to everything.
What?
More ice cream and veggie burgers. We'll be right back.
Praise the Lord, praise the Lord. Won't you praise the
Big ideas grow.
Come fall in love with Northridge Senior Living, where contemporary sunlit interiors meet old world elegance. Walk through our lovely hallways and enjoy the fun staff-led activities. Forge lasting friendships with other residents and our exceptional caregivers. Dine in style. Gather near the fireplace under breathtaking chandeliers. Our reasonably priced apartments are spacious with private balconies. Northridge is Christian-owned and operated, pet-friendly, and only 2 blocks from Asante Rogue Regional Medical Center. On-site 24/7 in-home care is available. We also offer senior adult daycare where your loved one can spend the day with us and the evenings with you. Northridge Senior Living, your home.
Are you struggling to find loyal customers to grow your business? The people you want are watching and listening to the Dove right now. Hello, I'm Perry Atkinson. You know, the Dove offers your business a loyal and faithful audience, a safe and positive media platform to be associated with, reaching over 6 million customers daily. Find faithful customers, partner with the Dove, and watch your business flourish. Find out more. Contact Nancy Worth, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at the Dove today. Hi, good morning to you. 23 minutes past the hour and some regional news. Our friends down in California. How's it going down there? You guys surviving? Anyway, how's your high-speed rail doing these days? Are you guys enjoying getting down to the Central Valley at 930 miles an hour?
Oh, yeah. What happened to that?
Well, it's a big headache and a big loss and a big mess and a big embarrassment. Mm-hmm. And the new report damns it pretty bad because it comes out $7 billion funding gap on something you already spent billions of dollars on, and not one rail has been laid.
Yes.
Secretary of Transportation Duffy weighs in, and here's what he had to say.
California high-speed rail, no viable path. We just released a report, 300 pages today, about how bad this project actually is. 15 years, $16 billion, not one high-speed rail track has been laid. The waste and the abuse, the mismanagement of this project has called for this investigation. Now, we're going to give California 30 days to respond to this report, but we have $4 billion on the line in this project. And again, I think we should have high-speed rail, but we're having real issues of whether this high-speed rail will actually be built. We want to invest in good projects in America, make sure your tax dollars are spent well. That's what we're fighting for here at DOT.
Okay, I think what they ought to also do on this, it's such a catastrophic failure. 15 years, 16B, still 7B short, and they want 4 more B from the government. I mean, the thing is just a catastrophic failure. They're going to give California 30 days to respond to this report.
Okay, check this out.
Yeah.
So they've spent around $16 billion, according to him. What have they gotten for their money? They have 57 miles of completed guideway. They have 45 structures. That's it. The structures are those things like I saw by Fresno, that looked like the Roman aqueducts because it's like an elevated section of it. They don't connect. They don't go anywhere. They just sit there. You drive by them on Highway 99 and you think, the first time I was just dumbfounded. But so for $16 billion bucks, you get 57 miles of railway and you get 45 structures that can't be used?
Okay, so here's what you do. If I was running for governor in California.
Okay, do it.
Okay, so I would take the $16 billion. I don't know how much of the $16 billion is taxpayer money from Californians.
Right.
So let's just hypothetically say $16 billion. The Californians have been taxed $16 billion. Okay, I would divide that by every person that pays taxes in California and give them a tax credit over the next 5 years back.
Boom. Right. And then on top of that, California puts illegal aliens on health services, and you're paying for that too? I'd say it's time to sell my house and start looking elsewhere.
All right, so let's go from one governor to the next. Let's go to our governor. Governor Tina Kotek is going to get a bill on her desk. It's Senate Bill 952. If she signs it, it'll give her the power to fill a vacancy if a U.S. Senate seat comes available. Now, this isn't unique. We will be joining really a majority of the states in the country have this bill that if there is a vacancy at the U.S. Senate level, the governor can appoint somebody to fill that space until the next election.
But what does the timing of this tell you?
I think there's something up here. That's just my little conspiracy thinking.
Okay.
The one that tells me that might retire. Now, this will say to a senator, you don't announce you're not going to run for re-election. You retire before the election. Okay, you retire during the summer recess.
Okay.
The governor appoints somebody, that becomes an incumbent until the next election cycle. All this is timed out.
Yep.
Okay, and I think that's what's going to happen. My speculation is it could be Senator Ron Wyden. I don't think it would be Merkley, but who knows?
Isn't it funny?
But I think it might be Senator Ron Wyden.
But isn't it funny which party talks about the threat to democracy, and then they tear down these democratic procedures and institutions. This is crazy.
All right, one other quick thing. There's a little bit of a problem. People are finding what they think are abandoned fawns out in the forest. These little baby deer, okay? They are highly speculative. They're not abandoned, that the mother is just not seen close by. Okay, and so people have been picking them up and taking them.
Yeah.
And rescuing them as abandoned fawns and not realizing what it's going to take. Most of these are not abandoned. So the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife is saying if you come across an abandoned fawn, call the authorities and let them check it out. But if you pick it up, you may have just done the unpardonable. Because a lot of times you'll see fawns out there and the mother's nowhere around, but she could be just standing over in the bushes somewhere.
Because you don't see her, doesn't mean she's not around.
Yeah. Right. So apparently they've had this overrun of people picking them up thinking they're being abandoned, somehow they need to be adopted. Well, all of a sudden when you do that, you're in trouble. Now you got to really raise this thing.
Yeah.
And so be careful if you're going to interfere with Mother Nature there. And one other quick note, I just want to shout out to our good friend, Pastor Chad McComas. You know, he's been very passionate about Joy Community, which is the new community just down the road here, where they're taking these small houses and they're going to be ministering to homeless seniors. You say homeless seniors? Yes. Literally have been taxed out of their homes.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's a whole nother level of human need. And he saw this and passionate about it and feels led of the Lord. They're going to be opening their first phase here shortly where some seniors are going to have a home again. It's an amazing thing. And it's called Joy Community. And I just want to say to Pastor Chad, God bless you, pal.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Yeah.
Doing a great job. All right. Let's take a look at what's happening on Wall Street on this Thursday morning. And thank you, Preston, over there at Smart Lawn, helping us with this, and visit his wife's ice cream parlor. Twin Queens ice cream. I love ice cream. Anyway, the Dow is off 136. The Nasdaq is down 28. And the S&P down 13, so a little red ink this morning. I'm sure it has to do with the global geopolitical stuff going on. They did push gold up to 34. Look at this. Silver jumped $3. $36 an ounce for silver. And crude is hanging in there at $64 a barrel. There you go.
Well, on Newsmax's National Report, Representative Jason Smith promoted Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill in spite of some of the spending concerns, and he has some warnings about consequences of not passing the bill.
This bill delivers on all of President Trump's priorities that he campaigned on and 77 million Americans picked on. The largest tax cut in U.S. history, the largest mandatory spending cuts of $1.69 trillion in U.S. histories, including we're repealing more than $500 billion of the IRA, the Green New Tax Scam, including $200 billion of the EV tax credits. We also have the most significant welfare reforms in U.S. history, all within this bill. This is a very conservative bill. It is transformational from trying to reset government, but when people use the fake accounting notion coming from the Congressional Budget Office saying that just extending the current tax law will create trillions of dollars to the deficit is just bogus math. No, I would say look at cutting $1.69 trillion in mandatory spending. That is 300 to 400% more than what has ever been cut in the history of America. DOGE did some really great work. Over the last 4 to 5 months, they've cut about $175 billion. Our one beautiful bill cuts $1.69 trillion. That's a big difference. Could we cut more? I hope so. If the Senate can muster enough votes to pass it, that's great. But if we don't pass this bill, Americans will face the largest tax increase in the history of America, plus there will not be $1 that cuts spending.
All right, a lot of controversy over the bill. So I go back to a simple question. How do you eat an elephant?
Well, one bite at a time, yeah.
Okay, you don't eat the whole elephant at once.
Right.
And here we have an opportunity to cut expenditures. The way you rescue a company in trouble is you cut expenses and increase revenue. If you don't do that, your company is going to go down the drain. It's simple, what I call baseline accounting, okay? So the only thing I can say is now we have a bill. It ain't pretty. Yeah. It ain't perfect. Yeah. But it starts the cutting process.
Seems to, yeah.
And so anyway, but because it has T on it.
Oh, yeah, well, that's true.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So put a G on it.
What's the G?
Ginger.
Ginger, okay.
Ginger cookies, isn't it?
Yeah, enjoy.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Yes.
Your yard is where life happens, but it can be muddy and hard to maintain. Enjoy a maintenance-free artificial turf lawn all year round with Smart Lawn LLC. No mowing, no fertilizing, no watering. Our synthetic grass is beautiful and resilient. It's certified to be lead-free and there's no need for pesticides. Safe for your children and pets. Smart Lawn LLC has all your artificial turf and putting green areas covered beautifully. 541-941-3538.
Put your gold in an envelope, mail it. Hopefully you get a check. Nah. Father and son jewelry, bring your gold in, we weigh it, we check it, we make you the offer.
Or turn your something old into something new. Whether it's an idea, a picture, or a piece you want to duplicate, we can melt it down and make it for you.
If you find your perfect piece in store, trade your something old for something new, and you always get a little extra.
Visit Father and Son Jewelry, 5 generations of family in Medford.
Go where the wild runs deep at
Hellgate Jetboat Excursions, you feel the power of the mighty Rogue River as you take in the sights and sounds of nature, journey through Hellgate Canyon, and adventure through the breathtaking wilderness. Enjoy brunch or dinner on the open-air deck of the exclusive Hellgate River Lodge, and end your adventure with our exciting jetboat spins. It's a memory in the making with family and friends. Book your adventure at Hellgate.com. Hellgate Jetboat Excursions, where adventure runs wild.
Our goal at the Dove is to glorify God and help our audience connect more closely with Him. Something else we do here at the Dove is help connect our audience with reliable businesses and vice versa. Some call it advertising. Here at the Dove, we call it outreach. Connecting businesses with people they can help and our audience with reliable businesses for the help they need. If you would like to reach out to our audience with your business or service, give us a call, 541-776-5368.
Back to 25 minutes before the hour. Well, over here he's on the phone with President Putin. Over here he's on the phone with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And what do you do with the Ayatollah?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, let's check in with CBN News Watch and find out.
This is CBN News Watch.
It is Thursday, June 5th. We begin this half hour in the Middle East as President Trump is warning Iran its time is running out to make a deal of its nuclear program, even as Iran remains defiant. And today, Israel recovered the bodies of 2 Israeli Americans in Gaza. The couple died in October 7th, by the Hamas attacks. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell brings us the story now and more from Jerusalem.
Israel announced today the IDF and Shin Bet recovered the bodies of Israeli Americans Judy Weinstein and Gadi Haggai in a special operation. Both were murdered on October 7th at Kibbutz Nir Oz. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said all the citizens of Israel extend heartfelt condolences to the families. 56 hostages remain in captivity. 20 are thought to be still alive. The U.S. vetoed a UN Security Council resolution calling for a permanent and unconditional ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hamas, but did not demand Hamas disarm or release the remaining hostages. 14 members supported the resolution.
The United States has been clear. We would not support any measure that fails to condemn Hamas and does not call for Hamas to disarm and leave Gaza.
Israel's UN ambassador applauded the U.S. action.
Thank you for refusing to abandon the hostages and for refusing to legitimize the lies of this resolution.
As the Trump administration continues its attempt at a nuclear deal with Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei remains defiant about the demand to stop enriching uranium.
Who are you to interfere and say Iran should or shouldn't have uranium enrichment? What's that to you?
President Trump is lashing out on Truth Social, writing, "Time is running out on Iran's decision pertaining to nuclear weapons, which must be made quickly. It is my opinion that Iran has been slow-walking their decision on this very important matter, and we will need a definitive answer in a very short period of time." Trump originally gave the negotiators 2 months to come up with a deal. That deadline expires next week. The president is also taking action in the aftermath of an attack on Jewish demonstrators in Boulder, Colorado, by issuing a travel ban and restrictions on 19 countries. 15 survivors of the attack spoke out at a vigil.
I'll say I feel perfectly safe here in Boulder. I absolutely do. I'll say I was wrong, but I was absolutely felt safe. Hey, this was not okay. It really, really was not okay.
At the White House, CBN News' Kelly Wright asked Caroline Leavitt what the government can do about anti-Semitism.
Can these entities and these agencies work together with the president to put out a proactive campaign to help people stop the hate?
I think the president himself has been leading on this, Kelly, and has been incredibly clear in his rhetoric that he is not going to tolerate such hate or behavior in the United States of America.
The Boulder attack followed the murders of 2 Israeli embassy employees in Washington, D.C. in May, Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram.
And Chris Mitchell joins us now with more. Chris, let's begin with Trump's warning to Iran. Is the feeling there in Israel that time really is running out for Iran and that a strike on its nuclear facilities could be coming?
Well, Ephraim, right now, Israel has really been waiting for weeks to see about which way these negotiations will go. And now it seems they've reached an impasse. The big obstacle, as we reported, is enriching uranium. Iran says they won't stop, and the U.S. says they must. So the question is, where do we go from here? We wonder what the White House will do, what President Trump will do as this deadline expires. But I believe that Israel is ready for a potential nuclear strike against the nuclear facilities. They know that Iran is ideologically and theologically committed to these nuclear weapons. As we mentioned before, Ephraim, they have this belief in the return of the Shia Messiah, the Mahdi, that will come when the world is in chaos. So Israel here doesn't believe diplomacy is going to work and hasn't going to work throughout all these negotiations, and they feel the military option really is the only way to stop Iran.
I think that's slowly coming into focus. The president can honestly say that I tried.
Yes.
Okay, and I think that's part of where we're going with all this.
Yeah, I think you're right.
All right, let's check in with the guy that...
Speaking of...
Well, I just don't know how to describe him sometimes, but here he is.
With high pressure parked over the Pacific Northwest, warm, dry weather will continue through early next week. So today in northern Oregon and southern Washington, gradually becoming sunny with highs in the low to mid 80s for Vancouver, Portland, Wilsonville, and McMinnville. Moving down the Willamette Valley, partly sunny, then gradually becoming sunny with highs in the low 80s for Salem, Albany, Corvallis, and Eugene, with a north wind 5 to 9 miles per hour this morning. In central Oregon, sunny skies with daytime high temperatures in the low 80s in Prineville and mid to upper 70s for Bend and Sun River. Over in Boise, Idaho, sunny with highs in the mid 80s and a low tonight in the mid 50s. Along the Oregon coast, becoming sunny and breezy with a high near 67 in Coos Bay. Sunny and breezy with highs in the low to mid 60s for Port Orford, Brookings, and Crescent City, California, with gusts up to 33 miles per hour. In southern Oregon, sunshine in the Rogue Valley with daytime high temperatures in the low to mid 80s for Grants Pass, Medford, and Ashland. In the Klamath Basin, sunny with highs near 83 and lows in the mid 50s. Into northern California, sunny with a high in the mid 80s for Wairika. Sunny in Redding and Chico with high temperatures in the mid 90s, but not quite as warm in Sacramento with daytime highs in the upper 80s. In the Bay Area, patchy fog, then gradually becoming sunny with highs near 77 in Santa Rosa and Napa. Sunny and breezy in San Francisco with a high in the upper 60s and winds gusting up to 28 miles per hour. And today in San Jose, sunny and mid 80s. It's a look at your Thursday weather on the Dove.
And there's a beautiful picture of our Thursday weather out over what we call our backyard, known as the Rogue Valley.
Yeah. Right. All right. Well, when you think of the most famous swimmers of all, you might think of Mark Spitz or Michael Phelps, but no, you'd be wrong. It is Johnny Weissmuller.
On a warm Chicago afternoon, the water rippled with history in the making. Johnny Weissmuller, the son of Hungarian immigrants, stepped onto the edge of the pool with quiet determination. The starting pistol cracked. Johnny exploded into the water, and in under a minute, he touched the wall. 51 seconds, a new 100-yard freestyle world record. The crowd roared, but Johnny wasn't done. Minutes later, he dove back in for the 200-yard. Smooth, relentless strokes carried him to another world record, 1 minute 51.4 seconds. His powerful, graceful strokes defied the norms of his time. Untouchable in the water, he was dubbed the human fish. But Johnny's story didn't end at the pool's edge. In the 1930s, Hollywood came calling. With his athletic build and primal yell, Weissmuller became Tarzan, the vine-swinging jungle hero. He starred in 12 Tarzan films, becoming a pop culture icon and introducing millions to the roar that would echo through the generations. From gold medals to the silver screen, Johnny Weissmuller was more than a swimmer, and all things considered, he was arguably more famous than the combined celebrity of Mark Spitz and Michael Phelps. He was a legend, born in water and immortalized in film.
That was the call that I did after the first time I kissed Peggy.
Yes! I love it! Oh, that's wonderful.
But I will say one thing. I got a little bit of piece of trivia here. I was a traffic reporter, pilot for KCRA Radio and Television.
Okay.
And every morning I'm out flying around. And I would fly over the Carmichael Swim and Tennis Club and report on Mark Spitz being in the pool practicing.
Really? Like a Spitz sighting?
Oh, he would be out there like it's, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning swimming.
Oh, yeah.
He swam all day long.
Oh, I was going to say, I guess that's what it takes.
And his coach was out there, so I'd fly over and say, Mark's in the pool. And
that was part of your report.
Yeah, it was part of my report. It had nothing to do with traffic.
That's great. All right.
All right. Charlie Kirk, he's one of our most interesting guys. Talks about, do you think we're primed for a revival? Yes is the answer. But how will it happen? Here's how he talks about it.
I was wondering, why doesn't the right have, the left has dominated culture for so long. They had, the feminist movement. We can blame that for destroying the nuclear home. We can blame that for destroying marriages in a lot of ways. But how do we kind of work backwards from that, kind of get back to the core American values, lower the divorce rate, lower single motherhood, things like that? It doesn't seem to be a practical solution that's been even attempted by the right.
Well, the practical solution, we don't have to think. We need to point people to God and eventually to Jesus Christ, and that is the solution, is that people need to humble themselves before the Lord. They need to go back to church. They need to get married before they have sex. They need to stop engaging in debauchery and limitless amounts of drinking and the sins of the flesh, and understand that there's a God who loves them, that wants them to live a certain way. And it's not a matter of the feminist movement or the Black Lives Matter movement. We need a movement that is centered around spiritual, eternal principles. And make America holy again, make America Christian again. But a revival will only happen with repentance, and repentance is at odds with pride. And so we have an entire month dedicated to pride, by the way, which is you must acknowledge two things. There is a God, and we are not him. Those two things are fundamental towards having, hopefully, the humility of getting in front of your Creator, understanding that you fall short of the glory of God with the eyes on the cross and understanding the significance of what the cross is and what it means for your life. And with that will come widespread nationwide change. We are seeing some promising trends. Church attendance is slightly going up. Gen Z, especially Gen Z men, are more religious than millennial men, and it is increasing and growing. And young women, we got some things to work through. But we will not save the country just through politics. Politics is a means towards an end, a means towards liberty. But liberty is not man's idea; it's God's idea. And we are only able to experience that liberty if we are a moral and religious people. And I'll close with the statement with this, that the Constitution is incompatible with a faithless nation. You will not have a free society if the country goes atheist. You will not have a free society if the country goes secular. That sounds provocative, but it's true, is that liberty and freedom cannot coexist with a nation that does not believe in a higher power.
Mm-hmm.
God, that is one of the most powerful few minutes of explaining what's going on here. But God bless Charlie Kirk. He's a frontline warrior out there doing a great job. All right, we'll take a frontline break. We'll be right back.
Black Flag Armory offers top brand affordable rifles, shotguns, handguns, and gear. We also offer an array of classes emphasizing safety, self-defense, and accuracy. We strive to provide the absolute best possible experience when buying a firearm. Family friendly for every skill level, Black Flag Armory in Midford and Grants Pass. Online at blackflagarms.com or 541-499-0779. 541-499-0779.
Welcome to Rise Direct Primary Care. Imagine a healthcare experience where you're known by name, cared for like family, and treated with compassion. How is that possible? With an affordable, flat monthly membership, you receive unlimited primary care and minor urgent care visits. No insurance needed. At Rise Direct Primary Care, we offer a friendly, affordable healthcare experience where you get a whole hour with your provider. Located in Central Medford and accessible by phone or text, we can typically get you in the same or next day. We prescribe urgent care medications directly from our office, saving you a trip and wait time at the pharmacy when you'd rather be at home getting better. Personalized medical care with a human touch. Rise Direct Primary Care is all about healing the sick with compassion and keeping the healthy healthy. Rise Direct Primary Care. We're here for you. Visit risehealthdpc.com or call or text us 541-827-8603. 541-827-8603.
How can Christian parents train their kids to know and follow God's design for sexuality in a culture that increasingly rejects it?
Join us as we uncover the damaging misinformation being fed to your children on sexuality and gender identity, and learn effective strategies for grounding them in biblical truth with confidence and grace.
Join me for the John Ankerberg Show weekdays at 4 o'clock right here on the Dove TV. It'll be encouraging and informative.
Welcome back. Happy Thursday to you. Earlier we showed the video of the Senate Judiciary Committee hearings that are going on talking about rogue judges, district court judges that are passing or creating these rulings that stops the president.
District court judges, national rulings.
These injunctions out of control. So when they were done against a Democratic president, the law professors went crazy. But now that it's being done against a Republican president, the law professors wanted to support it.
Sure.
So Pennsylvania law professor, University of Pennsylvania law professor Kate Shaw, we saw earlier, Josh Hawley talked to her. Here is Senator John Kennedy talking to her.
I don't think there's any basis under Article 3, under Supreme Court precedent, under the English common law for nationwide injunctions. I think politicians have helped judges, and many judges are politicians, to just make it up. And many of them are like Professor Shaw here. If they like the president, they're against nationwide injunctions. If they don't like the president, they're for him. Professor, let me ask you this while I have you. On April 22nd, 2024, you said there are some members of the Supreme Court that are evil. Which justices were you talking about?
I'll take your word, Senator. I don't recall using that word, but...
All right, here's what you said. You were talking about the majority opinion in Muldrow v. City of St. Louis. You said, quote, Justice Kagan, will she be able to control the opinion's future distortion by her evil colleagues? Probably not, end quote. Who were you talking about?
Sir, I'm very skeptical. If it's a transcription, it was probably a transcription error. I do not think I said...
No, you said it. Why don't you own up to it? Which you call some of the members of the Supreme Court evil. Now, which ones do you think are evil?
I would have to refresh my recollection. I've been very critical of some members of the Supreme Court.
You made that statement, aren't you?
I'm
You're an officer
Senator, it doesn't sound like something that I would say.
You know what I'm embarrassed at? That you're teaching our kids.
I don't refer to Supreme Court justices as evil in the classroom,
on
sir.
On your podcast, April 22nd, 2024.
Okay, well,
big as Dallas. And you're an officer of the court, and you're here advising us to be respectful of federal judges, and you say they're evil members of the United States Supreme Court? Gag me with a spoon.
Wow.
There's the hypocrisy on steroids right there.
Yeah. And this is what's teaching people who are going into the field. Oh, my goodness.
Well, there's two sides to everything. It's just the way it is, whether you like it or not. But the only thing I can say is that I have great regard for people who are willing to call out this hypocrisy. It's not a pleasant thing to do, but it has to be done.
And you know who else you admire in situations like this is guys like Alan Dershowitz, who call it on both sides. He would be against this regardless of who the president is. He looks at the law.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these people blow in the wind.
All right. Stick around. I got Jim Burling coming up to talk about Supreme Court stuff. We'll talk to him about that.
Well, and I have a playful little story about a drummer and a stray dog. Check this out.
The Brazilian band Café Pita is no stranger to enthusiastic crowds in their hometown of Alagoas, but during one recent show, it was an unexpected guest who stole the spotlight. Drummer Nandino Oliveira was mid-performance when a friendly black dog he'd met just days earlier outside a different venue wandered on stage. They had crossed paths at a gig a few days before, but now, during his new performance, the pup trotted confidently on stage and made a beeline for his favorite drummer. The audience held its breath and then melted as Oliveira paused, recognized the dog, and lovingly reached out to him. "I'm a dog lover," he said, "and as soon as I saw him, I remembered our moment from before. I held out my hand, called him over, and gave him a drumstick to play with. He looked happy, the crowd applauded and laughed. It felt like a planned moment, but it was all spontaneous and full of heart." After the concert, the two stuck together as the band packed up. Oliveira believes the dog is a stray and has made it his mission to track him down and give him a proper home. Oliveira said, "I think I know where he lives, and I want to adopt him."
So you're going to name him Drum?
or Stick. What?
Oh, Stick?
Yeah, either one. He reminds me, I have a black lab that looks just like him, and he acts the same way. When I'm splitting firewood, and one piece chunks, he runs over and grabs one of the pieces that comes splitting off, and depending on how big it is, he tries to carry it off. Same deal.
By the way, how are you splitting firewood these days?
I'm not.
Okay.
That's just a memory now.
Is it?
Until next year.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Well, you're doing good.
Yeah, I know. I'm here.
I know you are.
I made it.
I want to say thank you for being a champion. To get out of bed, drive with your left leg, and come to work.
Oh, you're telling everybody my secret.
Well, I know. Yeah. Okay. I just know how you're going to explain it to the officer.
Officer, I'll tell you what. I'm being really mindful and very careful every step of the way in.
All right.
All right.
I take with you James chapter 1, verse 12. Pretty interesting. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial. Because having stood the test, that person will receive a crown of life, and the Lord has promised to those who love him. So persevere, stand up, be a warrior, and enjoy a beautiful day.
Wildfire season is coming. Are you ready? All it takes is one small ember to level a home. Reduce any fire hazards around your home and property to prevent an escaped fire from spreading out of control and to protect your home from an oncoming wildfire. It's called Defensible Space, and it works. Go to keeporegongreen.org to learn more.
Looking for the perfect RV adventure?
Team Toner's got you covered from homes to homes on wheels.
Discover unbeatable deals only at American RV in Southern Oregon.
Stewardship begins with the knowledge that nothing belongs to us, but everything belongs to the Lord. This helps us to run a business not in the fear of lack, but in the assurance of His care and provision. Such a perspective eliminates the drive to sell and replaces it with a heart that says serve. This begins with serving our clients and coworkers with integrity and genuine care. That's why at Kelly's, it's automotive service with a heart for God, and treating others as we ourselves would want to be treated. Our promise is to never sell our clients anything we don't believe they need. Another is to do all we can to meet other needs, such as shuttle service and loaner cars, or taking the time to really listen, even at times praying with our customers. Sometimes this means sacrifice, going above and beyond, but that's why I work for Kelly's Automotive Service, honoring God while serving people with honesty and integrity.
Clean water is essential to your good health. Ultra Pure Purified Water has been delivering purified, healthy drinking water to the Rogue Valley since 1995. Locally owned and family run, Ultra Pure Purified Water uses a multi-stage process ensuring your delivery of water is 99.8% pure, so your family stays hydrated and healthy. Online at ultrapurewaterinc.com or call 541-734-0828. 541-734-0828.
Tackling the tough issues facing America and our nation's freedom. That's Sekalo on the Dove TV.
DAs around the country finding who they want to prosecute.
A bold half hour hosted by ACLJ's Jordan and Logan Sekalo, taking you inside the battle of constitutional and political freedom, discussing issues that matter to you and your family.
No one that should or want to run for president will end up running for president.
Be in the know with Sekalo on the Dove TV. Enjoy the Dove, help spread the word. Tell someone who needs the love of Jesus about the Dove's encouraging and informative programming. Spread the word.
Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. And of course, there's a lot going on in the Middle East, and we want to stay on top of that. And I am so honored to have back with us today Jonathan Tobin. He is the editor-in-chief of the Jewish News Syndicate. He's also the host of the Top Story with Jonathan Tobin there on the JNS website. He's a senior contributor to The Federalist and a columnist for the New York Post, Newsweek, and other outlets. And you can contact or track a lot of his articles at jns.org, which is the Jewish News Syndicate, jns.org. Jonathan, good to see you again. How are you, friend? Oh, we don't have any audio on you. Do we have audio on them there, guys? Talk to me again.
Great to be with you.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Thank you for your time. Good to see you, sir. I'm having a hard time to ask this question, but is there daylight between President Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
Unfortunately, there is. That's a phrase that we learned during the Obama administration, when President Obama really set it as his goal to create more daylight between the United States and Israel. That wasn't the case in the first Trump administration, and I don't believe that's necessarily what President Trump wants as a goal the way Obama did. But the fact is there is daylight, and there's daylight between the United States and Israel on Iran principally, and perhaps also about the conflict with Hamas. And that is of great concern to friends of Israel, and I think for those who care about the security of the United States in general as well.
Okay, so where do we go with this? I would say, let's start with Iran first. President Trump wants to negotiate. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is being motivated by what is clearly a line in the sand of them developing nuclear weapons. Where do we go here?
Well, let me start out by saying that we shouldn't exaggerate the differences between the two countries. The Obama example is pertinent here. Obama, and to some extent Biden as well, their goal was not just, a bad deal. They wanted a rapprochement with Iran. They wanted, as Obama said, Iran to get right with the world. They wanted to transfer America's interests in the region from one of closeness with allies like Israel and to some extent Saudi Arabia as well, to that of Iran, an Islamist country that is at war with the West and the United States, because it considers Israel the little Satan, America the great Satan. But what President Trump is intent on doing is getting a negotiated deal with Iran over its nuclear program. Now, in theory, I think that's reasonable. You should always try diplomacy before force is resorted to. But the problem is, A, we've tried as a nation diplomacy with Iran many times. They are never really interested in an agreement that will satisfy both sides. They're only interested in getting a nuclear weapon and in getting over on the West and taking advantage of us. They've shown that time and again, as with Obama's terrible, weak nuclear deal that actually guaranteed that they would get a bomb, not preventing it. So Trump has sat his Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, who has, I think he's compromised by his dealings with Qatar. He does not seem to be very tough or a very astute negotiator. And it would, if reports are to be believed, we're heading for another bad nuclear deal. The Israelis are obviously, they are very upset about that because Iran is a deadly threat to Israel's existence. They've attacked Israel many times. They've used their terrorist forces to attack it. They are behind the October 7th massacre, so much else, a seven-front war. And Iran is really vulnerable right now since Israel stripped them of their air defenses last year. Now is the time, if anybody's going to attack them, now's the time to do it before the Russians replace those air defense systems. So that's why Israel is very concerned, because if that's put off too long, it will be that much harder and that much less effective if force is needed. Trump has said, don't attack them while I'm negotiating with them. Now, Trump always talks up negotiations. He says he's very optimistic. It could be a great deal. That's the way he always talks about deals while they're in the offing. What we have to hope is that as he is someone who knows the difference between a good deal and a bad deal, unlike Obama. He also is not out to appease them. He really does want to forestall the possibility of an Iranian nuclear weapon. We have to hope that unless the Iranians do the completely unexpected and agree to measures that Trump talks about, where they would actually be verification, where it would be impossible for them to get a bomb, what we're heading to is a weak deal that will allow them to basically get away with murder, retain their nuclear program, when what we need is for them to give up their nuclear program. They don't need it. They're awash in oil. They don't need nuclear power. What the West and Israel and the United States needs is a denuclearized Iran. And frankly, I'm not sure that the current negotiations that the United States is having with them is heading towards that.
Wow, a lot there. So do you think it's possible that the Trump administration is this naive to think that he could make a deal that would stick and denuclearize Iran? I
hope not. There are people within this administration, and many of them are good people, who are, I think, understandably, and listen, all Americans are against more wars. We don't want to have to get involved in more adventures in the Middle East. But there are people in this administration that seem to be a bit soft on Iran, which is, as I said, a deadly threat to the West as well as to Israel. I think we have to hope that President Trump's good sense will prevail, unless the miraculous happens and the Iranians really do want to rejoin the world. I don't believe that's possible. I know Prime Minister Netanyahu doesn't believe that's possible. We'll see whether President Trump, he's a tough cookie. He's not a naive person. He understands the world, but he does want to be a peacemaker. He hates wars. He doesn't want to be involved in military adventures if he can possibly avoid it. He's going to be given the chance to see if he can do that with Iran. I just don't think there's any really rational reason to think that that's a likely outcome. And I'm hoping and praying that President Trump will not fall prey to the Iranians the way Obama did, the way Biden did, and that he will eventually come to the conclusion that there's no dealing with them, that it's impossible.
So, Jonathan, do you think it's possible that the current administration is using the potential of the art of the deal to show the world that he tried diplomatically? Well, all along he has said they cannot have a nuclear weapon. So part of this deal making is to win, I guess, world acceptance that he tried everything and it failed, therefore.
I would hope that would be the case, and I think you can make a fairly good argument. But, there's only one person. This is not like the Biden administration where it was being run by a committee of, God knows who. In this administration, there are a lot of people that talk, but only one person decides, and that's President Donald J. Trump. I think he's earned the trust of the pro-Israel community and the American people when it comes to these things. But we also have to have our eyes open. He's not infallible. Yeah. And we have to hope that what he's doing will lead to what you just said. That but that's while he's involved in diplomatic negotiations, he's all in on them, and we have to hope that the momentum of the diplomatic process, which under Obama and Biden, it was diplomacy for its own sake. That's not what Trump believes in. But I'm not so sure about Steve Witkoff. I'm not so sure. I certainly don't believe that the Iranians want a good outcome here. So we just have to hope and pray that President Trump uses his good sense, and that when the Iranians prove to him who they are, as inevitably they will, he will come to the right conclusion.
I can't help but think that this administration would understand and trust the Israel intelligence to be far more accurate than anybody else on the face of the earth of what's going on in Iran, and understand the line in the sand is right smack in front of their nose.
Yeah, the Israelis are very much on top of what's going on in Iran. They proved it time and again with their sort of amazing covert operations there, which have sort of handicapped the Iranian effort, but not stopped it entirely. I think President Trump knows that. But if in the scenario that you charted, where he's just trying to convince the world, he's putting on a very good show of it, that he's not listening to the Israelis. There was a lot that's happened in the last few weeks where his first trip to the Middle East, he pointedly did not go to Israel. Vice President Vance didn't subsequently go to Israel when he was nearby. He has publicly warned the Israelis, not to take action against Iran. His quote unquote deal with the Houthis, the terrorists in Yemen that have been attacking international shipping, as well as firing missiles at Israel. That wasn't a very good show, and it's worrying a lot of people in Israel, and I think they have reason to be worried.
Sure.
There's a great reservoir of good feeling for President Trump, and he's earned that. But we're going to see. I have no crystal ball where I can predict, the future. I can only tell you what I've seen, what I've heard, what the sources say, and the sources, and indeed President Trump talks as if this deal is imminent with Iran. And the Israelis all believe, with their good intelligence, that it's going to be a terrible deal for the United States as well as Israel. Again, we have to hope that's not what Donald Trump actually wants to do, and that he is going to expose the Iranians for the liars and the cheats that they are, and then draw the right conclusion. But, that's for the future to decide.
How are you swallowing the cozying up to Qatar?
Well, I take a very dim view of America's, as you say, cozying up to Qatar. It is, as the best that you could term them is the word frenemy. They're very close with Iran. They're very close with Hamas. They're the primary funder of Hamas. They host the Muslim Brotherhood and its leader in their own country. They fund Islamic fundamentalism all across the world, including here in the United States. They're bad actors. It's a rogue nation, but they're also at times, they're American allies. There's an American base there. They play both ends against the middle all the time. The gift of a plane to President Trump, I think it's exaggerated. It's not a plane that can be used. President Trump will never fly in that plane because it just needs to be totally refurbished. It's obsolete. They just got rid of it. But the symbolism there of him and with Steve Witkoff, who was frankly bailed out in his real estate business by the Qataris to the tune of over $500 million, it smells bad. It looks bad. And frankly, I don't like the idea. And I think it's not just people in Israel. A lot of sensible people in the United States are worried about the way they are trying to buy influence in this administration, the way they've bought up the influence on American college campuses and around the world. That's bad. We shouldn't trust them. They're in bed with Hamas in Iran. They don't wish the United States well. They are part of the coalition of Islamists who are against us, even though at times they tell us that they're with us. Now, of course, let's not, they're not this, impossible to defeat enemy. The reason why they are cozying up to the United States and to President Trump is because they're much weaker than they were. Their allies are weaker. And that's because of what Israel did in Lebanon and helped topple the regime in Syria that was allied to Qatar and Iran. They're doing this out of desperation, not strength. So we shouldn't listen that closely to them. They need the United States far more than the United States needs them.
Wow. All right, let me take a quick break. Check out Jonathan's website, jns.org, which is the Jewish News Syndicate. There's a picture of the landing page. That is the place to go to get informed. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Live the adventure with Hellgate Jetboat Excursions. Discover your wild side in the heart of the Pacific Northwest with Hellgate's high-speed spins, stunning rogue river scenery, and incredible wildlife sightings. It's an experience like no other. Plus, you can enjoy brunch or dinner on the open-air deck of the exclusive Hellgate River Lodge, a place where families connect, friends unite, and the river brings it all to life. Visit Hellgate.com to book your adventure. Hellgate Jetboat Excursions, where adventure runs wild.
With the words, "Behold, a sower went out to sow," Jesus begins the legendary Matthew 13 parable of the sower about God's word and draws attention to the need for good soil in order to bear fruit. This question of good soil motivates and challenges every Christian parent. Can good soil be nurtured in the lives of our children? A similar question was asked by the ancient Greeks concerning virtue. Drawing upon classical traditions like the Trivium and the liberal arts, classical Christian schools are coming alongside Christian parents to do just that, nurture good soil and virtue. Now in our 8th year serving Jackson County, Knox Academy, the Rogue Valley Zone K-12 classical Christian school, is relocating to downtown Medford in order to better assist parents as they educate their children. We are currently enrolling students for the 25-26 school year. Visit us at knoxmedford.com for more information. Invest in a future with a strong connection to the past for good soil, deep roots, and fruit at knoxmedford.com.
How can Christian parents train their kids to know and follow God's design for sexuality in a culture that increasingly rejects it?
Join us as we uncover the damaging misinformation being fed to your children on sexuality and gender identity, and learn effective strategies for grounding them in biblical truth with confidence and grace.
Join me for the John Ankerberg Show weekdays at 4 o'clock right here on the Dove TV. It'll be encouraging and informative.
Welcome back, and such an honor to have back with us today Jonathan Tobin. He's the editor-in-chief there at the Jewish News Syndicate. He's the host of The Top Story with Jonathan Tobin there at JNS, senior contributor to the Federalist and columns with the New York Post and Newsweek and other outlets. His website, there's a picture of the landing page, jns.org. So much to ask, John, so little time. Jonathan, excuse me. What's your take of the president's action with Syria?
Well, he is assuming that the new regime in Syria, which is led by a former member of Al Qaeda and ISIS, has reformed. That they've truly turned their coat. He's been encouraged to do so by not merely by the Saudis and others who see this new regime rightly as a victory for the forces that are opposing Iran, and there's no reason to believe. President Trump says he's dropped sanctions. He's giving them every incentive to sort of join the West, like the Saudis have. He's invited them to join the Abraham Accords and make peace with Israel. Now, I honestly, I think if you think that this regime of jihadists is going to make peace with Israel, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. I don't believe there's a single person in Israel who believes that. Syria is a very belligerent country, and also it's kind of a made up country. It's a little like Iraq. as we learn to our sorrow as Americans in our involvement there. It's made up of a bunch of regions that were cobbled together by the French a century ago. With the Druze, the Alawites, the various nationalities there, they're all at war with each other. This is an unstable regime. And until the Assads took over in 1970, it was kind of a banana republic without bananas, with, a coup practically every other year. I don't know what the Las Vegas odds are on this regime in Damascus being in power a year from now. Yeah. I think I think it's a pretty long shot.
Yeah.
Sort of like I think the odds are of it being in power, 5 years from now, are about the same as the odds of my favorite team, the New York Jets, of winning the Super Bowl next year.
Wow.
Which are not great. So I don't think that's very likely. Here, President Trump is giving them a chance to join the good guys. Their ability to do so, even if they wanted to, is limited, and I'm not sure they really want to. And I think the Israelis have their guards up with respect to this regime in Syria. Yeah. They're preparing for the worst, not the best.
Okay, so the bottom line here with this whole thing going on is back to Iran, and it what's so interesting to me is that we've tried radiation with the cancer, we've tried chemo with this cancer. Now it looks like we're trying ice cream.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I'm sure the Ayatollahs were thrilled when Trump initiated negotiations with them and having direct talks. I have to say, Biden, for all of his, and his people chasing after the Iranians for those 4 years from 21 to 25, they never talked directly with the Iranians. They used intermediaries because they didn't want to get too compromised by them. So the fact that we are engaged in direct talks with the Iranians, and then, the point of contact is Steve Witkoff, who, again, not an experienced diplomat. That's, the fact that he isn't experienced isn't a disqualifier, because most of our experienced diplomats got us the first Iran nuclear deal. But he does not seem to have a very firm grounding on who these people are, who the Qataris are. The truth is, the only way that we can be sure that Iran won't have a nuclear program is for them to get rid of their nuclear program. And frankly, what we are offering to do for them is to strengthen this regime. The main effect of the Iran nuclear deal wasn't just that it eventually guaranteed that they would get a bomb. That's what Obama was giving them. The relaxation of sanctions and the delivery of billions in frozen funds, was an enormous shot in the arm to a regime that is hated by most of the Iranian people, and enabled them to fund their terrorist allies, all their terrorist auxiliaries all across the Middle East, who have been waging this seven-front war against Israel. I would hate to think the United States was going to go down that road again, because we would just get the same results: more war, more bloodshed, more terrorism.
Okay, so the bottom line is here, really, Iran has never been more, if I can use the term, vulnerable than it is right now. And Israel knows that. Israel also knows where the line of the sand is. Israel's also been replenished with weaponry from the United States. Israel cannot allow this to continue with any form of nuclear armament in Iran. And to your other point, the citizenry of Iran would love a regime change. Is it possible? Is it possible that Israel says, thank you, President Trump, for being with us, but you're wrong. We got to take care of ourselves.
Well, I think that's what Prime Minister Netanyahu is trying to tell President Trump. But let's be honest here. The notion that Israel would basically would attack Iran while Trump is negotiating with them, or even after, if he's concluded a deal with them, it sort of would, there have been times when Israel has said no to the United States. It is a sovereign state. It is its interests are its interests. The United States interests are very closely aligned with Israel, but they're not identical. But I don't think Netanyahu would risk a breach with Trump by directly thwarting him and attacking Iran, with the United States telling him, no, don't do it. I don't think that's going to happen, because Israel, for all of its strength and its ability, frankly, it needs the United States. It needs the American people to support it, which I have no doubt that the overwhelming majority of Americans do support Israel. That's one of the reasons, why they voted for Donald Trump, because they knew he was a good friend of Israel. But Israel cannot stand alone in the world.
Right,
it is largely isolated. Europe is turned against it.
Right.
Canada, it needs the United States to help supply it with arms. That it needs to continue the war against Hamas and against Iran. But it really can't, tell Donald Trump to go jump in a lake, because the consequences of that would be unknowable.
Okay, I get it. I don't know if we understand that pressure, but that's obviously the driving factor. Before I run out of time, I do want to go over to Hamas. In the meantime, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made it very clear that Hamas cannot exist, and they have to finish the job. Is President Trump slowing that down too?
I'm not saying unlike President Biden, he hasn't tried to slow down Israel's military efforts. But these are almost two separate issues. Prime Minister Netanyahu is faced with an impossible choice. Israel's two war aims in the war against Hamas are get the hostages back and eradicate Hamas. Those two goals are, sadly, mutually exclusive.
Right.
Hamas will never release all the hostages unless its future is guaranteed and that it remains in power in Gaza. And that is something that is incompatible with Israel's security. It's a guarantee of more October 7th. What Trump wants is peace. Trump fancies himself a peacemaker, a deal maker. He wants to expand the Abraham Accords. That's all good. I applaud him for that. He also hates forever wars, the idea of a war that just goes on and on and on. The trouble is, Israel's stuck with a forever war because the Palestinians will not make peace. And so that's why it's got to go on. The fight to destroy Hamas and all its supporters is not something that's going to be over in a couple of weeks. And that is a source of tension, not the same direct disagreement as with Iran. It's a source of tension with Trump because he wants the war to be over with. But Israel can't be over with the war as long as Hamas is alive. Trump understands that. He said he opposes Hamas's existence. He wants to turn Gaza into a resort. Well, you're not getting that unless Israel achieves complete victory. And that takes time and effort and patience. And President Trump has many good qualities, but I'm afraid patience isn't always one of them.
Okay, so how would you gauge the citizenry of Israel relative to hostages versus Hamas elimination? Does the average citizen understand this point that it's possible we may never see these people alive again?
I think a lot of people do. It's difficult for me to convey to an American audience sort of the culture of Israel, which is summed up in this issue. You have to, Israel is a small country. It's the size of New Jersey. Its population is like the population of New York State, more or less. It's a small country. Most of the people serve in the military, men, women too. And there's sort of a pact between the country and its citizens. Is if somebody gets captured, the country goes and gets them. The country, nobody's left behind. It's kind of like the Marines. People understand that. And we have a tradition, religious tradition in the Jewish, in the Jewish faith of, it's called in Hebrew, Pidyon Shvuyim, the obligation to ransom hostages. Now, unfortunately, in 2,000 years of persecution, we've got a lot of experience with the hostage taking and people being kidnapped. But the point is, it's an obligation to ransom them, but it's also an obligation not to pay too much so as to encourage the kidnappers and the thugs to do more violence. This is an impossible position for Netanyahu to be in because if he doesn't get all the people back, a lot of people won't forgive him for that because they identify with the hostages and their families, and everybody knows someone who knows someone who knows a hostage or a fallen soldier. Right. On the other hand, if he lets Hamas live, he won't be forgiven for that either. We should all say a prayer that we're not Benjamin Netanyahu when faced with that terrible choice. I think he knows what his obligation is. He's got to secure the many more than the few. But it's a very hard position to be in. We have to have sympathy for that and understand this is still an existential struggle for the life of the Jewish people and of the Jewish state. And it's his obligation to ensure that there is never again an October 7th. And that's why the war against Hamas. And let me say, separately from this issue of hostages, there's very strong support for the war effort. When people are called up from the reserves, it's like 120% people report for reserve duty. Everybody is all in. This is a country where there is patriotism in a way that, I think Americans in general didn't feel since World War II. It's very different. Everybody serves there. As depressing, I've been in Israel a number of times since October 7th and during this current war. And there's a lot of things to be depressed about. So many funerals, so much suffering, so much sacrifice. But it's also inspiring because I have to tell you, you speak to the young people, they're all willing to fight. They all go in, and when they come out, they'll tell you, I'm ready to go right back in because I know what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for my family and for my home. So Israel, despite the travails, the most important thing I can tell our audience here is Israel isn't giving up. Israel is fighting. Israel's people are resilient. They will fight for their families, for their homes, for their country, as previous generations have done. They are not going to be defeated. And with God's help and with the help of the United States, they will win.
Jonathan, you're fabulous. Thank you for your time. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, jns.org is the website where you could check out a lot of what's going on there. That is the go-to place. You know what's so interesting about this, Jonathan, as you well know, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was blamed for October 7th for a breakdown in intelligence, but they also don't want anybody else but him to fight the results of October 7th.
Yeah, he is. As former French leader Charles de Gaulle said, the cemeteries are full of indispensable men. But the truth is, there is no one else in Israel right now who could have done what he's done the last year and a half, fending off Biden, fighting this war, doing what needs to be done. There's nobody on the horizon, quite frankly, who has his skill set. And the polls show a lot of people don't like him. He's been around forever, longer, frankly, than any Democratic leader should be, because, there should be turnover in a democracy. But he, all the polls show that he has a solid core of support. And the polls show that you match him up against anybody else, they say Benjamin Netanyahu should continue to be our prime minister.
All right. Good to see you, friend. Thanks for your time. Look forward to more visits. God bless you. Stay there.
Thank you. Okay.
Put your gold in an envelope, mail it. Hopefully you get a check. No. Father and son jewelry, bring your gold in. We weigh it, we check it, we make you the offer.
Or turn your something old into something new. Whether it's an idea, a picture, or a piece you want to duplicate, we can melt it down and make it for you.
If you find your perfect piece in store, trade your something old for something new, and you always get a little extra.
Visit Father and Son Jewelry, 5 generations of family in Medford.
Big ideas grow.
You feel most alive where you feel most at home. And this is living. Bobcat, the company that changed the way the world works, is coming home with a quality compact tractor built to match your quality of life. This isn't work you have to do. It's work you get to do. So get it done in a tractor that's all you. See your dealer or visit bobcat.com.
Washington Watch with Tony Perkins is your watchful eye on the nation's capital. Every weeknight, covering current events, issues of faith, family, and freedom from a conservative Christian perspective.
Who is really upholding the law? And
Tony is the president of the Family Research Council and your leading source for what's really happening in our nation's capital.
That's just the tip of the iceberg.
Don't miss Washington Watch, weeknights at 6 on the Dove TV.
Welcome back. It's always a delight when we have time to sit down with somebody I highly respect, Jim Burling. He is the Pacific Legal Foundation Vice President of Legal Affairs and the author of a fascinating book called Nowhere to Live, The Hidden Story of America's Housing Crisis. And there's a picture of the cover of the book. He does have a website for that, nowheretolive.org. And I think out of his own passion on this subject, he's done an excellent job in telling you about all this. Also, pacificlegal.org is the website of his organization, pacificlegal.org. Jim, good to see you, friend. How are you, bud?
Hey, it's great to be with you again, Perry.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you. Well, just quickly, the court wrapped things up. What do you think about this last go-around?
The court is having some good and interesting decisions. I mean, just today they ruled on behalf of a woman who had argued she was being discriminated against because she was a straight woman in a county office that had homosexuals working there. And she alleged she was discriminated against because she was straight. But the courts, the lower courts had said, well, look, this is out of the Ohio Youth Services, and Ms. Marlene Ames is the person who sued. And Marlene Ames said, look, I'm being discriminated against. I want to be held to the same standards as everybody else. But the court said, no, because you're straight, you have an extra burden of proof that you have to show that you've been discriminated against. And this extra burden means that you have to show there's kind of background discrimination where if a person was suing on saying that they were gay and being discriminated against, or that they were a minority and were being discriminated against, didn't have to reach that high level. And the Supreme Court unanimously said, in an opinion by Justice Brown, that it doesn't matter if you are part of one class or another. Everybody has the same standard of proof in trying to prove discrimination. Now, whether or not she could prove discrimination is a whole other matter. It's going back to the trial court for that. But the court is showing that it is relatively reasonable and conservative in a lot of its opinions. And that was a unanimous decision that came down this morning. So it's not just an ideological litmus test, Democrat, Republican, and everything. Some issues that the court can agree on, and that's treating everybody fairly right now.
Wow. Do you think the DEIing is going to stick?
I think the DEI has seen its heyday. And I think people are going to look at it. Look, of course, we have to make sure we do not have circumstances where people are basically handicapped because of their race or other things as well. But at the same time, we shouldn't bend over backwards and do reverse discrimination or say that if you are not a member of a particular discriminated against class, then you do not have certain rights. No, I think that the idea that we want to make sure everybody is treated fairly is always going to be with us, and that's going to be front and center. The idea that we should bend over backwards and discriminate against some people because they were benefited from discrimination in the past, that just opens up a Pandora's box that we really cannot go down that road if we're going to survive in a country that is so multicultural, that has so many different people of faiths, religions, races. We have to figure out how to get along without looking at the color of our skin, as Martin Luther King said. Look at the content of our character instead.
Okay, good stuff. One other big 30,000-foot view question. A lot now is being investigated on the activity of these district court judges and their injunctions. I understand the legal part of wherever it is could go to the Supreme Court, but the jurisdiction of those district court judges. It would be something that has to be looked at by Congress. However, do you think this has gained any kind of attention of the Supreme Court, that they're overreaching?
Oh, I think the Supreme Court is definitely looking at the question of nationwide injunctions. I mean, they just had an argument last month dealing with that question. Now, whether or not they're going to resolve it is another matter. But I think the court, recognizes that when a government agency is doing something unlawful, an injunction may have to issue to stop that during the pendency of the case, when the arguments are heard and full trial is heard and that kind of thing. But then the question is, can a district court in one district somewhere, either California, if it's President Trump being the one being sued, or Texas, if it was President Biden being sued, can one district court basically set policy for the entire nation? And there are times where a issue before a court must have broad ramifications, that the injunction may go beyond the borders of that district court. But the Supreme Court really has to put up guardrails to make sure that the district courts are just not simply trying to make law for the entire nation and getting away with it without some kind of standards that just don't exist right now. So the Supreme Court's going to have standards for these nationwide injunctions at some point, and probably sooner rather than later.
So all along, this has been somewhat of an ambiguity in the system that allows the district court to reach out?
Yeah, because the rules of that govern the federal courts give the district courts power to issue injunctions. Well, that's well and good, but nobody ever thought that we would see, when those rules were adopted, that we would see so many cases, dozens and dozens of cases, a few against the Biden administration and then the Trump administration especially. So many cases where so many district judges are issuing so many nationwide injunctions. And because this is somewhat unprecedented, I think we're going to see some guardrails, as I said, put on the ability to have these nationwide injunctions.
In a practical sense, Jim, these district courts are really overloaded. In fact, you need more district judges. I mean, there's so many cases in these district courts. But if they don't define district being a district geographic area, then these kinds of things can happen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the backlog in some of the district courts is tremendous. If you file a civil action in a district court, it's going to be years in some places before it even gets heard. And justice delayed is justice denied in a lot of these cases. Mm-hmm. So, yes, we do need more district judges, and Congress ought to figure out how to do that in a relatively nonpartisan way. That's the only way it's going to be done. And the district court's jurisdiction, what they can rule on, has to be limited as well. Now, most district courts do not have these nationwide injunctions put before them. They're generally the ones that are targeted are the district courts where the person bringing the lawsuit, the state, the environmental group, the anti-Trump group, or whatever, knows that they're going to get a friendly judge. So in those cases, in those districts where you know you're not going to get a friendly judge, these cases aren't being filed. Those judges don't have the same workload constraints then that those courts that have all these lawsuits filed in them do.
Amazing. All right, let's come back to some specifics here. Can you kind of unpack the court's decision in the 7-county infrastructure coalition versus Eagle County? This is a pretty interesting case.
Yeah, this is an amazingly significant case because it involves a National Environmental Policy Act. Now, when the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, as many of us call it, was passed in the early 1970s, it was fairly modest. The idea was that agencies, federal agencies, and anybody involving a federal project would study the environmental impacts before the project would proceed. It wasn't something to shut down a project if the environmental impacts are there, but it just so we would know that there are environmental impacts to allow us to make better decisions, to allow the government to make better decisions that would better protect the environment. But that has morphed in time where more and more things have to be considered in an environmental impact statement. Fast forward to this case where 7 counties infrastructure was trying to build an 88-mile pipeline to bring oil from the fields north down to the ports, the Gulf of Mexico, and just to spur that 88 miles. But they did thorough environmental impact statement. It was 3,600 pages long. It considered all kinds of effects, and it should have been enough. But they were sued by a variety of environmental groups and one of the counties that didn't want the pipeline. And the lower courts had said and ruled that they had to not only consider the impacts of the pipeline itself, all the land that it would cover, the wetlands, the endangered species that it might touch, all those kind of things. But it also had to consider all the upstream and downstream effects. And what that means is all the environmental impacts of drilling for oil that may eventually reach the pipeline, and the downstream effects of what would happen to that oil once it hit the refineries. What are the environmental effects of the refineries? And of course, what about the impact of burning the oil have on global warming? So this had to be put all into a environmental impact statement for an 88-mile pipeline. And it would have been daunting, impossible, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars more in study, even after they did the 3,600-page study. And things like this just kill projects right and left, where there's no limit to the amount of environmental impact that a project can have. It's the butterfly effect, right? If a butterfly sneezes in China, it's going to have an impact on the weather in California. So with that in mind, if you have to study every single environmental impact, secondary, tertiary, down the line, up the line, you're never going to accomplish anything, because environmental impact statements would be just too expensive. And that was the whole point of this lawsuit. So the Supreme Court, in an 8-0 decision, unanimously ruled, no, that's too much. Justice Kavanaugh wrote the opinion, and he essentially ruled that, look, you have to look at the environmental impacts of the project itself, but not all these downstream and upstream effects. And he said, if you have a system where NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, requires all this extra study, it's going to be something that stifles and stops, and in fact, it has been stifling and just outright stopping projects that need to go forward. We live in a complicated society. We need stuff to be built, and we can't have a statute that creates such an impediment and such roadblocks to building things. So it was an excellent decision. Again, it was unanimous, so it's not a right versus left thing. It was an instance where the Supreme Court, all of the justices, used some common sense. And this is a very common sense decision in Seven Counties infrastructure versus Eagle County.
This is huge, absolutely huge. Who abstained?
Justice Gorsuch abstained. Of course, he gave no reasons that justices never do, but we can figure he comes from Colorado, where this came out of, and he may have had financial or personal interest in the pipeline company, the county, one side or the other in the case. So he, I think, fairly wisely recused himself. It made no difference to the outcome of the case.
All right.
And the court also said that, you have to have some kind of deference to agencies. It's not the old Chevron deference, but, give us a break. If you have a impact statement that's 3,600 pages long, it looks at everything and anything that deals with the environmental, give the government a break and let the project go forward.
Wow, this is huge. I got some questions on this. Let me take a quick break. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, check out Jim's professional website, pacificlegal.org. And then he has a personal website for his book, nowheretolive.org. Check that out and get a copy of his book, Nowhere to Live, The Hidden Story of the American Housing Crisis. And we're going to touch on that when we come back. We'll be right back.
Finding that next great series to binge watch is fun. But your neck, shoulders, and body don't count that as me time. Hi, I'm Tamara Miller, owner of Organic Element Spa, and I invite you to put down the remote, get off the couch, and schedule yourself some real me or we time with your favorite service, like one of our many massages, couples massages, or facials. Your health, safety, and comfort are always top priority with us at Organic Element Spa. We can't wait to see you. Book your appointment today.
Hey, this is Ed, co-owner of Visiting Angels. To continue to serve our seniors, we need more caregivers with a heart to serve. Our mission statement is honoring the art of giving, which means we honor you, the caregiver. We know it's our people that make Visiting Angels the best in-home care provider and a great place to work. Come be our next amazing caregiver. Give us a call or apply online. At Visiting Angels, we're committed to you because we honor the art of giving.
Drinking and doing drugs helped me numb the pain. And the pain brought so much desperation. I was afraid I would lose my family every day of that affair.
So many times I was ready. I was ready to pack up and go. I said no more. God, you could figure it out later, but I'm getting out of this house. And that's not what God wanted for me.
Watch the 700 Club Friday morning at 11 on the Dove TV. Washington Watch with Tony Perkins is your watchful eye on the nation's capital. Every weeknight, covering current events, issues of faith, family, and freedom from a conservative Christian perspective.
Who is really upholding the law? And
Tony is the president of the Family Research Council and your leading source for what's really happening in our nation's capital.
That's just the tip of the iceberg.
Don't miss Washington Watch, weeknights at 6 on the Dove TV.
Okay, welcome back. Always an honor to have with us Jim Burling. Jim is the Pacific Legal Foundation Vice President of Legal Affairs, and his book is fascinating. We'll talk about that in a minute. Nowhere to Live, The Hidden Story of the American Housing Crisis. There's a picture of the cover of the book available online. It does have a website, nowheretolive.org, and then his professional website is pacificlegal.org. These folks are your frontline warriors in your behalf. So check them out and support them. Jim, just one more thing on the NEPA case. This is a huge adjustment to so much down the road. I got to imagine, since the NEPA has been somewhat weaponized through the years, that this is a real blow for them. Out here in the West, we still fight this because we have these massive fires, and then we're not allowed to go in there and clean up the floor because of organizations like this. You kind of wonder if this is a little bit of a crack in that area.
Yeah, I hope it is. Look, I'm the eternal optimist, and I fully understand the problem that when you have these forest fires, you have this dead, dying timber you can't clean up because every time you try, you have an environmental impact statement that has to be filed, and then you have people suing over it, and the judge wants to be careful to make sure the environmental impact statement is full and complete and considers everything. And by the time you're done, the forest is burned down, several times sometimes the time it takes to do these. So I think this is going to have an impact on the ability of suing to stop. If you have an environmental impact statement, you have to consider the effects of global warming. And what are those effects, on a forest? Will that affect the ecosystem of the and it just goes on and on and on. The number of things that courts will require you to study an environmental impact statement. And I hope the lower courts, get the message from a unanimous opinion of the Supreme Court that too much can be too much, enough is enough, and let's study the honest-to-God real impacts on the environment of what you're doing, but not make it so burdensome so you can't do anything, such as, as you point out, not being able to take care of the forests in order to prevent forest fires. And if there is a fire, after there's a fire, not be able to clean up afterwards to get that dead and the burned timber out of there.
Yeah, it's such an irony, if not hypocritical, because good stewardship would require for us to go in there. We all want to be good conservationists, and for us going in there and cleaning that up is a duh.
It makes, and frankly, that's what humans have been doing in the forest for millennia. Before white man came to the North American continent, the Indians used to regularly burn and clear out forests so they'd have more land for grazing deer. They knew that forests were not something that were static. They had to be managed. The Indians didn't have modern management tools of chainsaws and trucks, but they managed best they could. And we should continue to manage our forests, or else they will manage us. Or management by disaster. And management by disaster is no way to do things. And hopefully the environmental impact statement study requirement has gotten easier now to make it easy for us to manage in some way other than waiting for the next fire to wipe things out.
All right, I want to come to your book for a few moments I have left. You wrote an op-ed series about the housing crises. How could you summarize the problem?
Yeah, so a series of Southern California newspapers, Orange County Register, San Diego Union Tribune, have picked up these columns that I'm writing, explaining about how government policies have created the housing crisis that we're in. For example, the column that ran a couple of days ago talked about the first zoning law in America, which came out of Baltimore. And I've talked about this a number of times at different groups. People are surprised to realize that in June of 1910, 115 years ago, when a black lawyer bought a house in a white neighborhood, there was a riot and every window in his home was broken. And Baltimore soon thereafter adopted the nation's first zoning ordinance, which prohibited black people from moving into white neighborhoods and vice versa, in a cynical hat tip to equality. Now, that was eventually struck down by the Supreme Court because it affected property rights. But as I continue in my series, then we had another series of zoning laws and zoning decisions that made it really easy to stop development of homes on people's property if those homes would cater to lower income people. So smaller homes, multifamily homes, apartments, all those things have been banned in large parts of America, designed to keep minorities and poor populations out of areas. But the result of that has been, it may keep certain neighborhoods really nice and pretty, but the result has been that it's very, very difficult to build housing. And it is so difficult that each year we have less supply and more demand. And the difference between supply and demand grows to the point that we have a housing crisis. And so the law of supply and demand is inexorable. And I talk about this in the book. And if you don't build enough homes, prices are going to go up. And if prices are going to go up, some people won't be able to afford a place to live anymore. And they have to double up, triple up, live in their cars, or the worst cases, live in the street sometimes.
I know you can talk long and hard about this. I'm noticing something. While they're not investing in homes because of prices and I guess interest rates, apartment living, apartment building and construction is huge. It's exploded. And you kind of wonder, is this the alternative of owning a home? And does this ultimately bring people into the city where they can be, it sounds conspiratorial, but they actually are more controlled by stacking them on top of each other?
Yeah, I mean, there is that subtext of building more apartment areas in cities because people in cities tend to be more left-leaning, and perhaps it's a way of eradicating people out of rural areas and suburbs. I don't think it's any kind of designed to do that, but I think it is an effect that we have when we have taken away so much of people's property rights to build homes out in the suburbs, to build them in rural areas where it's pretty much impossible to build in rural areas, as you know, in Oregon. And so it forces people into cities, and it sometimes raises prices in cities, raises congestion in cities more than it would otherwise be.
All right.
So it's whenever you have government interference in the housing market in some way, it has unintended consequences, perhaps intended consequences, but it has consequences that really are negative across the board.
Jim, I'm out of time. I want to have you back. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, check out pacificlegal.org. Check out the book website, nowheretolive.org. He takes this subject and really unpacks it and does a wonderful job with it, available online as well. I also want you to head up a national referendum that everybody's taxes freeze on their home at the age of 65. See you, Jim.
Great idea, Gary.
The Lennox iComfort S30 thermostat can sense changes in your environment. It even knows when you come and go. So now your home's most important system is also the smartest.
Metal Masters can give you the smartest home comfort system available.